Welcome to the Capes Regional Forums for 2022. This is one of 3 forums. We're online today, but we also have one coming up in Auckland and Christchurch very soon. And we'll talk a bit more about those later. Starting with a whakatauki today, then we'll get into karakia and some introductions. So our whakatauki today is Aotearoa te tuatara ka puta ki waho. A problem is solved by continuing to find solutions. And hopefully this will resonate with you across the day. We have a bunch of activities, challenges for you, and acknowledging there are problems that we can find solutions for is a big part of that. So let's start with our karakia to open, our karakia timatanga. Feel free to unmute and speak if you like. You can press the space bar to unmute and press it again to mute. It's a good toggle rather than having to find your mouse and drag it over to the mute button. But I'll lead us now in the karakia. Whakatakata te hau ki te uru. Whakatakata te hau ki te tonga. Kia mākina kina ke uta. Kia mā taratara ki tai. E he ake ana te ātakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhunga. Tihei mauri ora. Okay, this is our kaupapa for today's workshop, our Aotearoa. We are spending time with you today to explore ideas about global citizenship education and help you think about your own next steps in your school to implement or build on any global citizenship practices that are happening there. These are our times for today. So they're all a bit approximate. We'll just play it by ear. We are looking at a 10:30 break for morning tea for about half an hour. And we ask you to stay on the Zoom, but you can turn your video off and mute so you don't lose the connection. Back into the second session at 11. Lunchtime about 1 o'clock. And we're aiming to finish at about 4. And at the end of the day, we'll ask you to do an evaluation and just some sort of tidying up to send you on your way. So Jean-Marie now is going to talk a bit about just some housekeeping, and then I will talk about introductions after that. So Jean-Marie.
Kia ora, just so that you know, the session is going to be recorded, just so that anyone who's unable to make it, there's a few people who've had to put in their apologies for various reasons, or if you want to be able to look back at it later. You can take a break whenever you need. You know, you're in control there, so if you need to get up and go for any reason, just do that. If you have any questions or comments in the chat, although at the moment seems to be quite a small group, so you might just be able to ask a question, but if need be, pop it into the chat. So all of the main Zoom text chat is going to be downloaded and it will be added to the slides at the end of the day so that you'll have that. But if you are private messaging someone or any of the chats in the breakouts, those aren't recorded. Remain on mute unless you need to speak. So you can just use your space bar to mute or unmute quickly. It does just like a temporary unmute. And if you go to down in your taskbar for Zoom, if you click more and reactions, you can raise your hand, and there's also some other options there if you need to speak. And we advise using a computer rather than a phone for the forum if possible. So that's probably a bit late to let you know that one. I just realised. Okay, and at the end of the day, we'll have an evaluation form for you to complete. Are there anyone got any questions about the housekeeping? No? Okay.
All right, thanks, Jean-Marie. So just checking here we go, we'll do the introductions in a moment. Just before we get started, we just want to give you a little bit of background about how this workshop has come to be, what's going on, and some of the history that's led to us getting here today. So the CAPES, abbreviated to CAPE, is a university-led initiative. It's a consortium of 4 universities. All of the facilitators here with you right now work for Waikato University. We are the CAPES education team. Since 2017, the Capes have been funded by the Tertiary Education Commission. So the government has put this together, and collectively the Capes are sort of split across 3 regions: North Asia, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. North Asia is associated with the staff at Auckland University, Latin America at Victoria, Southeast Asia, mostly Victoria, but there are some people around the country too for Southeast Asia. If you want to click those links, you can explore those a little bit further. But essentially, the Capes have this intent to deepen knowledge and understanding of the Asia-Pacific region. I'll show you a map shortly so you can see which parts of the regions those are. All of the different Capes have a focus on building future-focused relationships with some kind of commercial or educational or cultural basis in that region. And ideally, that's also going to help with building economies in those regions. So some ways that might happen is through cultural exchanges, workshops, tours, cross-cultural camps, language learning. It's quite diverse. If I just go forward a slide for you here, these are the regions that the Capes are associated with. So you can see Latin America on the right-hand side, North Asia and Southeast Asia. Those are the countries that the 3 Capes are kind of responsible for. So I'm going to pass back to Jan-Marie now for a little bit of whakawhanaungatanga and some introductions. And Jan-Marie, I wonder if, because if the people we have at the moment, perhaps we do have time to go around rather than a Zoom chat. What do you think?
We may have time, I think, just to do this orally instead of typing in the chat today. So think so. What we're going to do is we'll just go around and introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, one sentence about why you're interested in global citizenship education. So just just a quick note there. And also we asked you to bring an object. So thinking about just one thing about the object you brought and why it's important to you. I'm just looking on my screen. Maybe Chris, would you like to start?
So I'll confess to not having an object. I missed that part, I'm sorry. So I live at Maraetai Beach, but I'm principal at Hunua School, which is a little rural school, South Auckland way. And the reason that I'm interested was that for a year I taught our year 7 and 8s, and we got into the global citizenship side of things, and it was really, really interesting. But 3 years have gone since then. And Andrew, another rural principal, has got some awesome things going at his school, and has a lovely link with the global citizenship education, and I could see how that would enhance what we do at our place. And I'm sorry I didn't bring I'm trying to think of what it would be. It would probably be my husband at the moment, because I kind of like him.
Yeah, and the good thing about being in the virtual forum here is that if you haven't got an object, you can just say you have an object that's in your house, so that's fine. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure, I've forgotten the name, but over the back fence.
Jeff.
Sorry,
Jeff. I'm Jeff Wood. I look after the health and global program at Rosemary College up here in Takapuna, Auckland, and I've been involved sort of in the international scene for over 40 years, and we're doing some interesting things with our students and with our connections with a number of schools around the world. So the object I bring today, and I'm going to get into the right, there it is Little Bolo. And that is a Igorot rice guardian. And the reason why I treasure this and some of the other objects that I've collected over the years is because as it was stated, it's a guardian, but it's also a little guardian of looks over international education, connecting globally, and expanding our students' perspective on their world now and in the future.
Very appropriate. Thank you. Next on my screen is Hong Wei.
Kia koutou katoa ko Hong Wei di toku ingoa no ko Taihang timanga ko Tinglong ti awa no Hebei China aho no lela tena koutou katoa. Hello everyone, my name is Hong Wei, just as I introduced. Currently I'm working at Te Reto Maioha Early Childhood New Zealand as a lecturer and also International Business Development Lead for Asia. The reason I joined this because I think I have it's a great opportunity for me to meet a lot of friends because I used to be working at the University of Waikato, especially involved into the CAPE project. Even I have left university, but the connection is still there. I really appreciate this opportunity to meet all of the friends there, and hopefully next time we can meet in person. And international business development is always my field, and always I have my passion to make the connections between New Zealand and other countries, particularly my home country, China. And so CAPE project is always is there for me to be part of it. And the talkie I brought here is night owl. Is different. Have different meanings there, but particularly is given by a Kiwi friend, and she put a kalakia there, and as means the friendship between our culture and personally me and my friend. And also she gave it to me because I'm a night owl, and when I a lot of late night when I'm working or writing papers, and it's always a good company for me to keep me going. And so this means friendship and hard work.
Wow, and thank you. And I'm a fellow night owl, so I can identify with that one as well. So, yeah. Jocelyn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, kia ora koutou, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. I work at the University of Canterbury in initial teacher education, and I've done research with some Auckland University partners over the last, through a TLRI project over the last several years on developing intercultural capability through language teaching, and we've just published a book around that project. And our conclusion with the project really was that this couldn't just happen within a language classroom, that it needed to be a school-wide endeavour. And we clearly see the link between developing intercultural capability and global citizenship. So I'm keen to look more at those intersections and expand my own understanding of global citizenship, so that I can then have that ripple effect with our initial teacher education students. So the object that I've bought is, I'm just going to see if I can get it on my screen here, is the top layer of my most recent birthday cake. And we have a family tradition where my husband does all the cooking anyway, but he also bakes his birthday cakes. And as our children have left home and had their own children, they all want their birthday cakes too, and so do their partners. And the birthday cakes reflect something about that person's life in the past year. So I'm just going to swivel this around slightly. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see it. It was multi-layered. It was quite tall, and it's like a typical medieval tower on the edge of a castle. So turn it around, you'll see the female popping out the top of this tower is growing her hair. So over COVID, over the past year, I've been growing my hair because I'm too scared to get up close and personal in the hairdressers. When my husband explained, we had a big family birthday with 5 birthdays at once. When my husband explained the rationale for my birthday cake, he pointed out that my hair didn't go all the way down to the bottom of the towel like Rapunzel's would. And the reason for that was because females in our family sort out their own problems. They don't just kind of hang around helplessly waiting for Prince Charming to come and do it for them. So I thought really nice message for my mokopuna who were there as well, and kind of sums up a lot of things about the culture of my family. But even wider than that, I think also significant in terms of just what we do value and how we celebrate, the fact that birthdays are that family time and so on. So kind of broadening out just from the individual to those societal norms and values. So that's me in a little nutshell.
Thank you. And I think your comments that you've just made are going to tie in really nicely with an activity that we are doing a little later on. So
okay,
I'll make that connection again then. Lottie.
Good day, everyone. Ni hao, zao shang hao. My name's Lottie. I am joining you from Australia. It's a little bit earlier here, so excuse my blurry eyes. And I am from New Zealand. I started teaching in primary schools in West Auckland, and I've taught all over the world. I'm currently based in Australia, where I've worked previously at the Asia Education Foundation at Melbourne Uni, and now I work for a language and technology company called Meg Languages, where we teach Chinese and Spanish, but I manage the global citizenship program. So I work with hundreds of teachers, and I'm always up for like learning more. And so I was very excited. I've connected with Libby. I was very excited to see this workshop because anything that connects me to my homeland is exciting. Anything that's global citizenship is exciting. So it's like the double whammy. Why am I excited? Yeah, GCED, it's always been of interest and passion ever since I was teaching. And I think for me, it began because I always understood when I grew up in New Zealand, pre-internet, the world was this world we accessed through books in the library, and I've always had this fascination about the world outside. So connecting our students to the world and helping them to see that in Thailand there's the same but different t-shirts, that we are all the same but we're also different, and both of those are equally important. So I think there's so much to talk about in that. The object I brought these little dolls, which I've just pulled off my shelf. So when I was a little girl, my godfather moved to China in 1978. He was a Kiwi. He was one of the first foreigners to move to China. And he used to send me these kind of gifts from across the sea, from his travels across China and Asia. And these dolls were actually one of the gifts he sent me, and it opened my eyes to this world beyond New Zealand and broader, but also it sort of, sparked this fascination with this place called China that I ultimately ended up living in for a decade and teaching at an international school out there and working for the Department of Education in Beijing, China. These are not the original dolls. I lost them. And about a year and a half ago, I found them in a charity shop in in Melbourne, for $1.50 each. So you cannot imagine the shriek that came out of my mouth when I saw these dolls, and my description to the ladies behind the counter of when I bought these and explaining what they meant to me, a deep family connection that put me on the path of global education from a very young age. So it's lovely to meet you all, and I'll pass on the mic.
Thank you. Ruth, would you like to share?
Kia ora. I'm from Auckland Selwyn College. I teach Chinese and ESOL. So in our class, in our school, we have so diverse students. So from, different countries. And so I just want to, broaden my view as well, and how to help the students and to know much more about the world, and how to help them to be just get some ideas into my teaching, and to help them to be successful globalizations and that kind of things. Yeah, just I need to learn much more from you guys.
Thank you. Emma.
Sorry, kia ora.
Kia ora.
I am tuning in today with this cute little guy. So I may be in and out very quickly at a lot of times. I am on maternity leave at the moment, but I'm at Riccarton High School in Christchurch, and how I got kind of involved with CAPE and stuff was that I got the awesome opportunity to go to China just before COVID hit. So I actually ended up going twice. So went once with Mary and Hongwei, hello. And then the next year we organised, Riccarton High School organised to take some year 9s, myself and a bilingual teacher aide, to Hangzhou, which is where our sister school was set up. And we went there for a week and had a wonderful time. And then since then we've maybe haven't really continued anything, but I've maintained an interest and I've maintained a contact with the sort of my counterpart at that school, who happens to also be on maternity leave with her little boy. And so anyway, I'm here today to, I don't know, maybe keep my interest and keep learning. And it's sort of, I wouldn't say it's a high priority or a high priority in my school, but at the same time we're interested, and I feel like it's important to know more about it. So that's why I'm here. I didn't bring and I brought an object, if you count humans as objects. This is Colin. He's 16 months. And yeah, don't go any higher, buddy. You're not wearing pants. And yeah, he's my life at the moment. So that's me. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Right, so Stephen, do you want to just go back to the whanaungatanga screen? Thank you everyone for sharing, and we'll just have a quick introduction of our team here. So I'll introduce myself first. No tamaki makaurau ahau I tipuaki I hau I Manarewa, I whanau ahau ki Mangakiki, ke kirikiri roa tōku kāinga nāianei, ko Jen Marie Callow tōku inga. So I'm Jen Marie, and I have been a teacher, a primary teacher, and for a large part of my time was at a poteri school, but now I work for Te Whai Toi Tangata at the University of Waikato, and I work in schools. And I'm loving the idea of global citizenship education and seeing how we can work on solutions to some of the big problems that are out there in the world today. So that's an area that really fascinates me. So next on our team, we go clockwise, is Pip.
Selamat pagi, kia ora koutou, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou, ko Pip Nuik tōku ingoa. Great to be here this morning and be working with our team. I'm based at Te Whare Wānanga, I'm not, at Te Whare Wānanga o Waikato in the Faculty of Education. Hongwei, lovely to see you. Emma, lovely to see you. We met briefly. And lovely to see some new friends. Jeff, I remember you from the Teacher Forum. So really nice to make those connections and to be part of this team sharing the learning with you this morning. I got involved with CAPES at about the same time Mary did when she was organising the Hangzhou trip. I had the incredible privilege of working with a group of kaiko from Waikato Tainui, and we took a we went on a haerenga to Chile. And I guess like everyone here, just huge interest in the world, and more than that, the people in our world. And also like you, we are developing our own, I suppose, special brand of global citizenship in terms of what it looks like for someone who's living in this whenua, who's living in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So, and we learn from what we see and hear happening in schools. So we're excited to share some of this learning with you this morning and find out what connections are happening for you in this space. So thanks, team. That's me.
Kia ora, Pip. Mary.
Kia ora, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. Ko Mary Jameson na hau, he kaitaka waenga o te whaitau tangata o te whaiwananga o Waikato. Bonjour, ni hao, konnichiwa, annyeonghaseyo. It's so lovely to see some old friends. Emma, your boy is so gorgeous. Thank you for sharing. It's lovely to see you back in the group, and really lovely to see you, Hongwei, too. And Jeff, met at the forum, I think, so really lovely to have you part of this. I think some of you I probably did meet at last year's Global Citizenship Forum, so it's really lovely to have you part of this group, and long may our connections continue. I have been working on CAPE since about 2018, when we took our first trip to Hangzhou, which was very exciting. And yes, this space is just ever growing and developing, and it's lovely to be leading this space with such a great team. And hopefully, oh look, here we go, Lottie's brought somebody in too. You've all got your families and everything else that you're dealing with. You're doing so well to be with us today. So yeah, it's lovely to see you, and look forward to talking with you more later on.
Kia ora, Mary. Libby.
Kia ora tātou, ko Libby aho, no mai haere mai. It's really, really lovely to be here. Global citizenship education is really just my favourite thing, I'd have to say. I've been involved in this for about 12 or 13 years formally, but really been interested in this kind of space for a very long time. I had a great good fortune to work for the UN when I was young for a year, and I've had lots of other kind of jobs and things that have connected in my life. And I came to teaching a bit later with probably an atypical sort of degree for teaching. I had background in political philosophy, international relations and human rights. So I've really found a really nice niche in that. But I think actually what really, really attracts me to it is that I think it's a framework that is intellectually sound and applicable and able to be applied really, really well. It captures all of the elements of transformative education that are needed now. So I'm really, really excited. I did meet a couple of you. I remember meeting you, Jeff, at the forum last year. In fact, I liked the forum last year so much that I'm still here. I stayed. So I'm the education director here, and really, really looking forward to working with all of you today, and in an ongoing way as well.
Kia ora, Libby. Lauren.
Oh, Lauren had to pop out. She'll be back.
She had to pop out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see the screen of who's in here.
No,
okay, we'll skip to Stephen.
Okay, kia ora koutou. No mai haere mai. E tipu ake a Aotearoa te maunga o Taranaki, ko Ngāti Pākehā tuku iwi. Kei taupo nui a tia a hau e noho ana. Kei te aro i te maru o tūwharetoa. Ko Glenda Cool rawa, ko Malcolm Ross o ka mātua, ko Stephen Ross taku wingoa, nō reira, tēnā tātou katoa. My name is Stephen. I grew up in Taranaki. I now live in Taupo. That's where I am today. And I work for the university. My background is in high school education. I taught science and physics for about 16 years here in Taupo, and have been a facilitator with the university since the end of 2018. And my object today is this little huia feather. It's not really a huia feather. It's I don't know what kind of feather it is, but the tip has been painted white, and it says "Walk the Talk." And this is a little kind of prize I got at the very first hui when I joined the university, and all of our colleagues were working together to plan the year ahead. And it's kind of about, I guess the team that was running the day sort of noticed that I was really getting into it and really excited, and I was walking the talk. So I have that on my desk here all the time. So I have a fond memory of starting off at the university. Now, Tyler isn't with us just yet. She's got COVID in her house. She's fine, but she's got young children as well. So she'll be joining us a little bit later. And that might be the end, Jean-Marie, for our introductions. So let me just advance the slides here. And Jean-Marie, I think you'll talk about this one.
Yes, so we just want to gather your initial ideas about global citizenship education, just to see where we all are. So there's a Padlet. If you click the link, it should open up a Padlet in a separate window, and you'll be looking at what your current ideas about global citizenship education are, and what you hope to gain from today. And then there's a column there for anything else that doesn't fit under one of the headings. So if you click the plus that's underneath one of the headings, you should be able to add something there. Okay, I think lots of great ideas here about what global citizenship education encompasses, and we're going to touch on a lot of these aspects today. And I think, looking at the list of things that people are wanting from today, I think pretty much most of that will be covered. We're certainly going to look at setting up some future networking opportunities. So anything that we don't get around to today, we may be able to do in some future gathering or get together. Okay, thank you for that. Stephen.
Thanks, Jean-Marie. All right, everybody, we're just going to crack on with a little bit of a heads up about what's coming up for the rest of the day. So we're going to be talking about two different frameworks today. Our Global Citizenship Framework, which is an Understand, Know, Act, Change format, and you'll hear more about that from Pip later. And then Tyler, who will join us later as well, will talk about Ngā Honga a Kiwa, which is a te ao Māori perspective on global citizenship education. She'll unpack that a little bit with you. And across the day also, you will hear about our website, which is teachapac.nz. We've linked that there too. And on the homepage, we have 3 articles which we think are a really good background to our kaupapa in the education team at Waikato. And we're just leaving this with you because that will also be discussed briefly later in the day. Right now, though, Libby is going to talk to us about something called Earthrise.
On Christmas Eve 1968, the first manned mission to the moon had reached its destination. Apollo 8 slipped into lunar orbit. The crew prepared to read passages of Genesis to a TV broadcast to the world. But as the command module came round on its 4th lap, there it was, visible through the window, a bright blue and white bauble, suspended in the black above the relentless grey landscape of the moon. No one had told them to look at the Earth. Before that moment 54 years ago or more, that no one had seen an Earthrise. Earthrise gives rise to a modern understanding of ourselves as global citizens. We as part of the whole. These men were arch-cold warriors, yet even to them it felt like a message for humanity. One was quoted as saying, "This is the only home we have, yet we're busy shooting at each other, threatening nuclear war, wearing suicide vests." He said, "It amazes me." The significance of this image strengthens now as we firmly entered into a globalized, networked era, beyond the self-interested view of the international system. For the last 400 years, we've been operating under the international state system. Inter is between. That is relations between countries so that we can trade, travel, and preferably not go to war with each other. It's a system that relies on self-interest and reciprocity. We are no longer in a linear industrialized world. We're in a globalized networked one, and we need to get better at the complex. Global citizenship education is an internationally recognized framework for delivering transformative education. It begins in early childhood, goes through primary, secondary, tertiary to lifelong learning. It's evolved from a range of initiatives such as Education for International Understanding, Global Studies, Education for Sustainable Development. It marks a rapid shift in education to meet the needs of now. It's not just a nice thing to do, it's a requirement. It aligns to the principles of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the New Zealand curriculum, UNESCO's Pillars of Learning, and the United Nations Development Goals, to name a few. Sustainable Development Goals, sorry. This is really about being decent human beings and learning to live together, which is going to segue nicely into our next section.
Thank you, Libby. Yes, we are about to enter something called the infinite game, and we will be playing games at this stage. So to make this work, we need you to click the link that says click here to view. It'll open another slideshow in a new tab. And in that slideshow, you will be able to edit, but we ask you not to edit until we get to the parts where the games happen. And usually we play these games face to face, but we've modified them for a digital format. So I'll just show you how that looks. If you open that link, you'll go to this slideshow called The Infinite Game. And Jan-Marie and I will lead you through this. And our other facilitators will be welcome to jump in any time and fill in the blanks that might appear. So here we go, The Infinite Game. Hopefully yours is loading a little bit quicker than mine. I'm going to jump straight to slide 2. And the plan for this session, the kaupapa, the intent is that after this, we will have surfaced our shared values as people, as organizations, and as global citizens. So how's this going to work? We have a whakatoki. It's all about goodwill towards others being a precious treasure, which you will have heard Libby talking about in the Earthrise section just before. So this is the basic idea. The idea in this section is that you can divide life up into 2 kinds of games, infinite games and finite games. And the infinite game is a way to help us think about the way we live together and help us reflect on who we want to be. So these bullet points just kind of encapsulate the 2 games. Infinite games are keeping our deepest values in play and active, but the aim of a finite game is to win or be the winner or be on the winning team. Finite games can forward the infinite game, or they can spin on themselves endlessly and not do much good to anybody. So here's some context for you. This is not our own creation. We met with Nikki Hardy a few months ago at the university, and she led us through the infinite game. And her game is based on work by James Cass. And we've linked to his book there, Finite and Infinite Games. Nikki teaches at Auckland University, and she has a whole bunch of resources about this if you want to continue doing the infinite game with your colleagues or your clients. So we've linked to her website and we've linked to her manual. Does anybody want to add anything to the talk about Nikki?
No, I think that's all good. It's just she is really happy to share this kaupapa, and you know, at no charge or anything. So please feel free to pick it up and use it.
Cool, thanks, Libby. I'll just go full screen here. So we've got a Google Doc that we're asking you to just check just for a minute or two. This is a number of statements that contrast the infinite game with finite games. And we're just asking you to click this link, open that document, and just take 1 or 2 minutes to skim through those to give you a sense of what are infinite and finite games. There are 2 kinds of game. Jan-Marie, would you like to talk about these 2 game types?
Okay, so on the left-hand side, we have a game of beach cricket going on, and many of you will be familiar with this type of game. It's usually done with family and friends. It sort of evolves as you go along. The rules change to suit the game. If you've got little people involved, you may have different rules for them to help them to play, and people will take it easy and make sure that if they're bowling, that, you know, they bowl slowly so that the little person can hit the ball. The goal of this game is to have fun and for everybody to be having fun. And yeah, the rules just evolve to make sure that that happens. It goes for as long as people are interested in playing. Sometimes new people might join in. Sometimes people, you know, someone will get tired and go and have a sit down, and, you know, the players change. On the right, we have competitive cricket, and it has very set rules. There are a set number of people who are playing in the game, and only that number is allowed to play. We know very strictly who the rules are, and there's an umpire who makes sure that the rules are followed, and there are penalties if you don't follow the rules. The object of this game is to win, and that is the most important thing. Yeah, I think that sort of sums up the difference between the 2 types of games.
Cool, thanks, Jan Marie. So let's have a look. We're asking you now to jump into an answer garden. This link at the bottom will open a new tab, and we'd like you to type in just 3 separate words. Every time you type a word, hit enter. So you type your word, enter, type your word, enter, type your word, enter. But the words we want you to record, please, are things that you think are of infinite value. What's sacred, precious, special to you? It's an intrinsic thing. It can be as general or as personal as you like. Every time you type one thing, press enter. When you've done your 3, we'll check the word cloud. I'll just show you how that looks. You can type up to 20 characters, but ideally it's 1 or 2 words per time. I'll just give you a moment to find that link and add your 3 values. I can already see happiness on my screen. We will place that word cloud on this blank slide soon, but right now,
if you refresh, it's there.
Oh, thanks, Jan Marie. What you're seeing now is a word cloud based on research with Nikki Haria. She looked at infinite values identified by around about 1,000 participants in New Zealand as a research project, and this is the pattern that came out. And again, the bigger the word, the more frequently that word was submitted. Do you have any thoughts or comments about this word cloud at this stage? Feel free to unmute and add in there.
I feel really relieved that they're kind of like what I think.
Thanks, Libby. I'm going to refresh, escape and refresh so we can see the other word cloud.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, Libby. I remember doing this the first time, and I always just think, oh, look, my one's there. Everyone feels the same way as I do. I'm not a loner. I'm not weird or.
Stephen, I think it's interesting to see the ocean so big for New Zealand, and I imagine that this is tied to New Zealand as an island nation, and if it was, you know, somewhere else like Mongolia or Inner Mongolia, it would probably, you know, be a different word.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? The cultural differences will no doubt be obvious in different places. Yeah, here's the ocean down here that Lottie's talking about. Okay, so the next step we would do, if we were face to face, we would ask you to have written these on a post-it note and pop them into one of these quadrants. Because it turns out that these values, these infinite values you've identified, generally fall in one of these categories. There might be one that you think sits across 1 or 2 categories, but generally they seem to fall in one of these categories. Do you have any guesses about what the predominant category might be, where they all seem to be gathered in this quadrant?
I feel like relationships.
Relationships? Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts? Well, if we were to put our word cloud in here, I think you'd probably be able to identify human relationships for sure. That is often the predominant group of values. Let's have a look. I was just now showing you the 4 quadrants so you can check the research responses. When you look at the responses from the research, do you see any one of these quadrants standing out more than any other this time? You've probably noticed that family and love are big. Happiness, friendship, compassion, empathy, those things tend to be associated with human relationships. But what about finite values? So values which are finite are not the same as infinite values. They aren't necessarily intrinsic. They might be things that you think you personally value or that you think society around you values. So what we'd like you to do now is think of some values that you think society as a whole values and add them to another answer garden. I'm going to open that in another tab. Mary, will you be able to pop that in the chat for us? Thank you. Awesome. So this is the next answer garden. These are finite values, things that you think are valued generally by society. Now, just give you a moment again to type in your 3 values this time in this context. And these are the responses from those roughly 1,000 participants. Do you notice anything comparing this word cloud to our word cloud? Any similarities, differences?
Well, money obviously is super obvious in both.
Yeah, money's massive here, isn't it? And I think status, I think we had status on our one. Houses, cars, possessions, appearance, winning economic systems. You can see the difference, can't you, between these finite values and our infinite values earlier. I know Jammarie's popping this into the slideshow, but if we look at the research word clouds side by side, where do you think the finite values fit in our quadrants this time? For instance, the money is the finite value word cloud. Do you think in that word cloud, there's one quadrant that jumps out more than any other? Could they be grouped in any way? This one's a little bit trickier, isn't it? Well, I think we're going to carry on and get ready to play 3 dart games. Now, these 3 games do have some rules associated with them, and you will need to be actually using your mouse on the slideshow because you've got editing rights on the slideshow. So let's see how this goes. Dart game 1 is going to run for 60 seconds. Now, on the next slide, you'll be able to choose a circle and just type in your initials. So you can edit the next slide. In this game, we're going to ask you to start moving darts with your mouse. Now, to move a dart, you just need to put your mouse on it, click and drag. The object of the game is to keep the darts moving and include others. And to do that, what we want to do is ask you to focus on your circle with your initials. Anytime someone puts a dart in your circle, please move it to someone else's circle. If you can see somebody's circle is empty, try and make them a priority. Give them your dart instead of someone who's already got one. I'll just try and repeat that in a different way now. We're trying to keep the darts moving. You'll have a circle where you've typed your initials. When you are moving darts, just move them from your circle only. Don't grab them from other people's circles. If you get a dart appear in your circle, pass it on to somebody else. That's the game. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, so on this next slide, I'll just come out of screen sharing. You can now edit this and pop your name into one of the circles. So I'm just going to click it one time and then type my initials, and that's done. That's all you need to do. Click one time, type, and then you can click away from there. I'll just give you a minute to choose a circle and type your initials. Jeff's got his in there. I think Hongwei, you've got yours there. Libby's got one. Mary, Pip. Are we all okay with being able to add our initials to a circle?
No, new kid on the block, go through how to do it again, please.
Yep, so you're on slide 20, Chris. So
get to that. No, I will now.
Okay, there you go. So we're on slide 20. Click any circle one time and then just type your initials and click outside, and that's now your circle.
You've finished. If you could click outside the circle, so somewhere on the white space. Right. Now, has everybody got their initials in?
Ruth, are your initials in there? Okay. Jocelyn, have you got your initials in the circle? Kia ora, Lottie. Do you want me to go through the instructions? I know you popped away briefly.
So my one is SN. I already put it.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Okay, is that everyone?
Emma, do you have your initials in there okay? And Jocelyn, have you got your initials in? Okay. Are you on, Jocelyn, are you on slide 20?
You might need to do a refresh, Jocelyn. Or move through until you find the one with lots of blank circles.
While Jocelyn's doing that, the next step will be Jean-Marie is going to save this as an image, and she's going to put it on the background of the next slide so it can't be edited. And if you want to just jump ahead slightly, Slide 21's got all of our darts waiting to go. Jean-Marie's going to put our circles behind those darts, and then I'll tell you to start the game and we'll be able to start moving our darts.
So we still don't have Jocelyn.
All right, I'm going to stop screen sharing just briefly, because sometimes people might think that the screen they're seeing is theirs and they can't edit it.
Okay, so Jocelyn, your initials are J.
JH.
JH.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Jocelyn.
Okay, I've made one for Jocelyn. So.
Okay. Now, Emma, I don't know if Emma's got one. She might have popped away briefly. So we might just carry on, Jean-Marie.
Okay, I'll just do it with.
Does Lottie have one?
I am in there. I am TR.
Oh, perfect.
I use teacher code automatically.
Oh, okay. Understood. Thanks, Emma.
You're all right now, Jocelyn? Because
I've got Jocelyn's in there, so.
Thank you. So I'm looking at the Google Doc, the slideshow on the Google Doc. Should I be opening some other window? Because I've refreshed that and it's still not looking.
Okay, I've just put the link in the chat, Jocelyn.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That's
that
great.
link should take you straight to the slide that we're looking on.
Perfect. Yep, done.
Okay, cool. So I think Jean-Marie's ready to now screenshot that. She's going to put it as a background onto slide 21. Now, if you are in editing mode, I think we all are, you should see that now slide 21 has got a different background. Does it look good for everybody? Slide 21 has now got all of our circles.
Yep.
Okay, we're about to start the game. Now, just to let you know, when the game is over, you'll hear this sound. That means stop playing, okay? So, the rules one more time. Keep an eye on your circle. If a dart comes into it, move it to somebody else's circle, please. Don't put it in a blank circle. Put it in someone's circle. All good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep an eye on other people. If someone hasn't got any, move it to there.
All right. I think we should get ready to play now. Let's start. Go. Okay, everybody, that's the end of game one. So, somebody's distorted their dart significantly here. That's okay. That's going to happen. We know it's a limitation of this medium that sometimes you might grab something by a corner and accidentally skew it. So there is no judgment there. That is all.
Who's that with all the darts? Who's got all Libby Giles? How did you do that with so many darts?
Finite games all the way for me.
Yeah. So at the end of this first game, we don't have a winner. We weren't trying to win. We were trying to share those darts around. We're going to move now to game two. So I'm just going to screen share for a moment to tell you about game two, which is different. And you might see that the rules are on your screen now. Do you see that dart game two is on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this time the game is different. This time you do want to win. And you can win by getting the most darts into your circle. Now, there are some rules about that. You can't just go copy, paste, make more darts. And you can only move one dart at a time. So it is possible that you might select a whole bunch and move them all in one go. And we're asking you not to do that, but just take time to move one at a time. And this time, the darts that you put into your circle can come from anywhere. So just one more time. You want to win by filling your circle with darts. You can move one dart at a time. Take the dart from anywhere you like. Just please don't copy darts and don't move a whole bunch at once. Now we're still going to be doing this on slide 21. I'm going to stop my screen sharing. Do the rules of this game make sense to everybody? Okay, this time we have 30 seconds. It will be shorter and you'll hear that same sound at the end of the game. All right, are you ready? Are you ready to win?
Oh, Stephen, are we allowed to steal darts from someone else's circle?
You sure?
Definitely.
Yep.
We don't even have to ask.
No.
No.
You just fill up your circle with darts, Pip.
Excellent.
But one
I'm
at a
ready.
time, one dart at a time, please. Are you ready? Emma looks like she's ready to win this one. Okay, and let's go now. That's the end of game 2.
I think it's Lottie. Oh no, where's that all gone now?
All right, no more dart movement there, everybody. Okay, we have had some significant trauma has occurred to some of the darts. That's okay. We can sort that out. So in dart game 2, can we all clearly see somebody who has the most darts in their circle? Who do you think it might be?
HD. Hongwei.
Hongwei. Would we all agree that Hongwei appears to have won game 2?
Or maybe Jeff. I'm not sure. Can't see, but no.
Yeah, maybe JH otherwise.
No, I'd say Hongwei's. She's even trying to make them smaller. So
Hongwei's got lots of little darts. Somehow they've shrunk. They got shrunk in the wash.
Hiding them.
I don't know what happened here. Just keep putting the darts in and it's all there. You should take some
It worked.
You sound so innocent, Hongwei.
All right, everybody. If you jump onto slide 23, you'll now see that Hongwei has earned herself a medal.
Well done.
Great. She is the supreme winner of game 2.
Winner.
Congratulations, Hongwei. Okay, we have a third and final game to play. I'm going to do some screen sharing and just show you the rules for this one, because these are different again. So for this particular and final game, you will end up going into a breakout at the end of this game. This game, you need to be on a winning team. So based on the collection of darts that we've now ended up with, we need to find a winning team of 3 people with the most total darts. That means you need to look at the darts you have, look at the darts of the people around you, and approach them to see if they want to team up with you to be on the winning team. You can't copy and paste any more darts. You can't give your darts away. The whole point is you need to form a, what's the word from reality TV shows? An alliance with 2 other winning people, so that overall your team of 3 has the most darts. Have I made that clear enough?
Yeah.
Good.
And I think judging by the number of people, we might just make it into just one breakout. Like there's only we haven't got enough people to make 2, I don't think.
Okay, so we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people with darts, right, Jean-Marie?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to set up some breakouts. Let's see, 1 breakout room, and I'll just assign manually. Okay, so just talk among yourselves while I try and assign these dart owners into their own breakout.
Okay, I'd just like to get in first and say, Hongwei, can I please be your new best friend?
I know nobody's going to want to be in my team.
No, me
I've got
neither.
none. I don't bring anything to the table, Jocelyn.
You can come to my birthday party if I can go to yours.
Oh, thank you. As long as somebody makes me one of those cakes, I'll be in. I'll be at your party.
So, Jean-Marie, can you just read out the initials? Because I'm trying to flip back and forth and I keep losing.
Okay, so HD.
It's Hongwei.
MJ.
Mary.
Yeah. SN.
Ruth, is that you? Yes.
GW.
Jeff. Yeah.
KB.
Chris.
Okay. TR.
It's Emma.
And JH.
Jocelyn. All right. We're going to send you to a breakout room, and what we'd like to do is when you come out of the breakout room, tell us who is the team of 3 and what is your total number. All good? The rest of us, the rest of us will just languish here, talking, wishing that we were on the winning team. All good?
Yeah.
We might just make this 2 minutes, Jean-Marie.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've got to be very quick.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, all right. And you should see an invite now. If you don't go if you're unassigned, just room 1. Welcome back, everybody. Did you decide who the winning team of 3 is? Would one of you like to type that in the chat for us, please? And your dart total number?
So in real life, you would be playing this with real paper darts and throwing them around the room at first, just playing game, keeping the darts in play. And then the second game, you would actually be physically taking darts that have landed on the floor or around you. So this is the virtual version of that.
Okay. Hey, well, congratulations to that winning team of 3 people with 16 darts. And I can now reveal that they have their own medals. And we all congratulate you, winners of game 3. All right. We're just going to finish up now. It's really important that at this stage we come back to our forum and we all accept that we were just playing a game. It wasn't personal. And so could we ask you please now to just type into the Zoom chat, I was only playing a game. And this is to acknowledge that the game is over and we're going to leave that game, those 3 games behind now.
Okay.
So we're back we're now recording again. People watching this video will have seen a seamless transition from the Infinite Game to this now. So welcome back, everybody. Jan-Marie, you happy to debrief the Infinite Game with us?
Okay, so we're actually going to have time in the breakout.
We shared some thoughts in our breakout room because quite obvious I got the most of that in for the 3 games. And the feeling we found that, like Chris said, the winning could be like the level of your participation or, but for me, I found the reason I got the most of that, I think everybody trying to play the game in a good manner because people won't take that from the circle already got a name in. Just like I do, I just take the darts from the spear ones all around. And the reason I got most of that is because nobody taking darts from my circle. That gave me the best chance to win. And that I think that's everybody trying to be in a good manner and to not that aggressive or that's giving me the result. And for the 3rd game, I think being under quite obvious winning, like, but you also need to have a strategy to get to the medal for the 3rd game. And it could be for a finite game, you can take the glory as the winner, but at the same time, you could also you might also in a risk that people might take you down or take you off by putting different groups. But just because I got most of that, so that's the result we got for the end.
Thank you. Anyone else like to share their thoughts?
Can I just share that when we played this, when we made the darts in that first round, you get this, there's a really strong focus on how well you can make your dart and the beauty of the dart and then how well it can fly. So that's, way before you're thinking about winning or anything like that. It's got a completely different focus.
Thanks, Libby.
Yes, and when you introduced the competitive element, things with the real darts went a bit west, really. The real darts started getting a bit munted looking, and we did digital munted darts, didn't we? So the real darts started getting squished and people weren't quite so worried about the beauty of the dart.
Thanks, Mary. Okay, do we want to just go to the next slide? Has anyone else got anything else they want to share?
I was just going to quickly say, in the group I was in, Jocelyn talked a lot about just the sort of escalation of the competitiveness as the games changed and how that happens. And then I talked about how, and it's happened to me every time I've played the game. I kind of just, I said I ended up in the losers lounge, but I had none, so I couldn't play. And, so I went down to the bottom of the garden to eat worms sort of thing, and we talked about how you have to be prepared to play the game. When you're out there in the real world, there are lots of different games in play. And if you're not sure about the rules or you don't like the rules, you just kind of opt out sometimes. So that was, you know, I mean, obviously I was sort of playing a role, but I kind of thought, oh, you know, I haven't got the energy sort of thing. So I think all of those things we've talked about kind of contribute to everyone's different experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And also I think a comparison that I think of with this is that when probably sort of more than half people sort of sit down at some point of the game and either just hand over their ones or just bail out because they know they're not in the game anymore. Reminds me of things like the housing market. Yes. Where we know that there's so many people who just don't have enough darts to play, and it's a really good example of a finite game within an infinite game kind of thing.
And school as well, Libby, I talked about. I mean, my son, who just wouldn't play the game, so he was always getting detentions, not for anything serious, but he said, no, I'm not playing the game. I'm not, those are stupid rules. And so on. And I think there are a lot of young people who are excluded from education because the schooling system doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to play the game often, rather than they don't want to. They don't know, what are these rules that I've never learned these. Yeah. So
yeah, that's a really good point. And also you look at, schools where you've got, certain kids just constantly up on the stage getting prizes for their sporting achievements and all these kinds of things, and so many others who just never do. And how are they feeling?
They're the winners, aren't they? The winners.
And we celebrate them so much.
Pandemic comes into it too, because in a school setting we have children that their well-being's not as strong as it used to be. So if you played that game in a couple of my classrooms now that I could think of, I could tell you the kids that would sit to one side that normally would have participated but feel battered and don't have that strength.
Yeah.
It's a really nice point.
Yeah, agree.
Jeff, did you have a point you wanted to say? I just noticed you were unmuted there.
Yeah, I just agree with everything that's been said, particularly what you just brought up, Pip, about the different rules within the classroom. But I think one of the things we also know that in society, we change the rules for our gain.
Yes.
And I always reflect back to a judge in the US who was on the rules committee or headed the rules committee for a national sporting organization. He said that 324 rules were changed that year, attempted to change that year, and every one but two was for a person to gain advantage as a result of that rule change.
Such an important insight, isn't it? Yes. Who changes the rules, and it is for to advantage a group or a particular agenda, or so true.
Okay. So we've got a little reflection here, just thinking about infinite games, the way you think about our lives together, and thinking about the kind of player you'd like to be. And so we think about how in life we are constantly playing infinite and finite games, trying to keep our deepest values in play, but having to succeed in society if we want to achieve anything. And I think it's things like, when we think about things like work-life balance and things like that, and we think about how we can get that delicate balance of achieving our infinite game values while still managing to play the games that we need to play to survive in this world. Anyone else got any thoughts on that?
I do, because I'm on maternity leave at the moment, and it's a really interesting reflection on my life and where I'm at with my teaching. And do I go, my original plan was go back full time. And so now I'm contemplating, do I go back part time? Because then I can maybe get on to some of these more infinite values that I hold. Volunteering, going and seeing what my son gets up to, and all those sorts of things. And so it's a really interesting and quite emotional journey at the moment to think about where that might take me and where I go next, while still I love what I do. I love my job, and I love, it's I don't have the answers yet, but that's where I'm sort of sitting personally. So that resonates here with me. Kia ora.
So those are really great points you raise, Emma. I think, because you're in an opportunity now where you sort of are spending some time on your intrinsic values rather than the extrinsic ones, it highlights that while we value all these certain intrinsic things, we spend all our lives chasing the finite ones or the extrinsic ones, and it's just such a complete disconnect. So really, really great points.
Yeah, I think it's often at those times, those transition times in our lives that we, get to think a bit more deeply about such things, when we are approaching retirement, for example. Something that people will often start thinking about the balance between those two things. And thinking about, so just keeping your head, how this links to GCED, to our global citizenship education. So I think if we have a look at the next slide. Okay.
So so why would we do global citizenship education? And there's loads and loads of reasons, but I've just got some of those up here. As I alluded to earlier on, there are responsibilities to do this. Two things about responsibility. Responsibility actually gives legitimacy to global citizenship, because legally none of us are, with no world government to give us rights. But it's that that real understanding that we are responsible for sort of everyone and everything and connected, but in a kind of a more sort of duty type responsibility. There are local and international obligations that we have, and those I also mentioned before, the commitments to Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the New Zealand curriculum, UNESCO's Pillars of Learning, the SDGs, and various other local and international instruments to do with education. And the actual, recognised need for change or transformation in education to be more holistic. So you also hear about global competence quite a bit too, and that's definitely part of it. And I'm going to say a bit more about that a wee bit later. To have a future focus on education, to be equipped for the world, so in the way that it is now, not the way that it was. To raise achievement and self-worth. It seems like a no-brainer, really, that if we have a solid understanding of our identity and place in the world, then we're going to achieve better in so many ways. To help break down silos in education, particularly in secondary and tertiary, where everything becomes so kind of assessment driven. So also to have opportunities to value education beyond assessment. So it's kind of to look at those infinite values within education. To develop thinkers. And I think this is, because we get so siloed that we kind of get everybody on this sort of sausage factory model of education, and we don't spend enough time developing critical and creative thinking. We don't have enough opportunity to start sentences with, I think, in a classroom, and as educators ourselves too. There's also, in terms of meeting tertiary expectations, there's kind of a certain level of global competence that's expected as students enter universities that they perhaps haven't got, or aren't maybe even aware that they've got. It hasn't quite been packaged up. Also, media literacy and political discourse. These ones I find really, really, really important. And by the media literacy, I mean things like, how do we helping our people, to young people and any people, to navigate really, really complex social media information from all kinds of places, disinformation, hate speech, all these kinds of things, to actually have the kind of the tools and an ethical lens to look through those things, because it's very, very hard. Like being able to ask big questions about what's real And what's my responsibility in all of this? If I find out the truth, is it my responsibility to pass it on, and so on? And political discourse, of course, for people to be able to be, to have enough of an understanding, to be worldly enough about what's going on, to actually take part in their own kind of, in democracy, you know. I think Plato once said, one of the penalties of not being politically active is to be ruled by your inferiors. So we don't want that. The next one is, or is that 7? So just going into these local and international requirements a little bit. So we've got the New Zealand curriculum, of course, changing and being refreshed at the moment, and loads of opportunities, which we'll get into a bit later as well. The SDGs, which I'm sure you'll all be familiar with at some level anyway. Goal 4 is quality education. Behind all of the goals are a number of targets, and on quality education, target 4.7 specifically refers to global citizenship education and sustainable development and a number of other things. So this is where actually this is a requirement, and by practicing this in our schools and in our perhaps workplaces and other organisations, we're helping New Zealand to meet its reporting to the UN on that. So, and in terms of UNESCO, global citizenship education is a strategic, one of the main strategic areas of UNESCO's education sector. It has its roots in the foundation of the organisation, which started with education and international understanding. That was a UNESCO resolution in the early 70s, and it has just been refreshed to kind of to be sort of fit for now. And a lot of the kind of goals being developed around global citizenship education are being pushed out further than the 2030 of the SDGs, because, you know, that's getting to be quite close, and this is recognised as being so important. The 4 pillars of UNESCO are learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together, and learning to be. Most curricula around the world are kind of based around these. A more recent one was developed in 2012, which is learning to transform oneself and society. So that's a really, really nice fit with global citizenship education. In terms of sort of some of the definitional stuff, it is quite a tricky thing to define, and it can be seen as quite an abstract concept, but it really is about thinking about getting people to think critically and to sort of face, to be active, to meet the sort of opportunities and challenges that there are in the world, and to create a more equitable, sustainable, inclusive society and future. We often hear about global competence, and sometimes in a kind of interchangeable way with global citizenship education. They're not interchangeable. Global competencies is a specific measurement tool that certainly can be useful within global citizenship education, but it's not quite the whole story. I think now we're moving on to growing global citizenship education in Aotearoa.
Hi, kia ora Libby. Kia ora anō. You know, Libby has talked about the development of global citizenship education and the fact that it's mandated through UNESCO, through the SDGs, and she's also alluded to the fact that it can be quite a difficult thing to define. And the work that we're doing in the global citizenship education, well, I suppose the education team, the CAPES education team, has been around developing global citizenship education in Aotearoa as a lens, as a way of looking at the world, and as a way of creating some connections across the curriculum. And so we, as a team, over the last probably 3 years, this website, Growing Global Citizenship in Education in Aotearoa, has been developed and constantly being reviewed. We're trying to curate a series of teacher professional development information as well as learning tools to support us in schools to think about what the learning opportunities that we're providing for our young people in a very integrated and joined up sort of a way. And there are some really beautiful links to localizing curriculum, because when we think about where we are in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and how we connect to the wider world, we start with ourselves. Thanks, Stephen's just taken us into the website, and you'll see that these 3 articles, which Stephen alluded to earlier, are really useful background for understanding why we're even talking about global citizenship. And these are the ideas that Libby has beautifully synthesized and presented. And we are constantly adding new resources and stories in particular. And so I'm just getting in early and we're really interested in hearing stories from schools and educators generally about how they are exploring the possibilities for global citizenship education within their kura and within their different contexts. So what Stephen's showing you now is a range of different, some of them are articles, some of them are stories that have been written collaboratively with schools, and some of them are learning resources. A bit later on, we've got Ellen Unson coming on, who's going to talk about this fabulous new interactive learning tool, digital game, that has been developed. So we have a range of different sort of material on there to support not just teacher understanding, but also student learning in this area as well. One of the most important things to remember is that there is no one way of viewing global citizenship education, and I think that's why it can be quite hard to define. And developing a framework is kind of like a scaffold to help us in and to understand what the touchstones of this idea really are. So Stephen, could you go on to the next slide? Thank you. So in the CAPES education team, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've developed this framework, which encourages us to understand 3 big ideas about global citizenship, and those are explored in a bit more detail on the next slide. But they're global identity, global connections, global challenges, and we would probably add global challenges and global opportunities. We learn about those 3 big ideas through our local context, i.e. in our own backyard, whether that's just in our own community or more broadly within Aotearoa, and then across our 3 CAPES regions. So we're contextualizing the learning specifically into those sort of geographical areas. Very important aspect of our framework, or I suppose our learning approach, is having understood and learnt about, we are being called upon to act and to respond, to create this more equitable, sustainable, inclusive world. And I guess the final kind of prong of this is that the action, ideally, we want to change. We want to change the future. And Libby talked about the need to be critical and to engage critically. And, you know, we could ask ourselves a question: is always change progress, or is progress always positive? So we're really wanting to encourage that kind of really broad, innovative, critical thinking around our world. And some of you will have heard, I'm sure, that the whole idea about thinking globally but acting locally and starting at home. One of the nice things for us has been the development of the refreshed curriculum, which interestingly has happened at the same time as we've been developing this. And most of you will be aware that they have changed and moved away from objectives in which we can tick off or not, and really moving towards this a very much more conceptual framework for our curriculum and learning around big understandings, and then the knowledge that comes from that and these skills. So within the refreshed curriculum, of course, we have the understand, know, do. And we feel that our framework works very nicely together with that. The other thing that we are aware of is the place that global citizenship education is going to have in our refreshed curriculum. And it will be interesting to see what that looks like. But many, many opportunities for connecting learning through this big conceptual lens. Stephen, thank you. So just to give you a little bit of an overview, that these links will take you back to our website, where we have some voice from young people from Aotearoa School, from Ngātai Aotearoa here in Aotearoa, who were asked some questions about who they are, where they stand, and what they think about some of this stuff. So as you can see, we have our three beautiful tohu here. And again, if you go onto the website, you will learn about the inspiration behind the tohu, which were designed for us by a wonderful young graphic designer here in Aotearoa. So the big idea around identity, and I guess we could say language and culture, are very much part of our identity. So really working to support our young people to really feel strong and know and understand their place in the world, really. Connections, really interested to create that curiosity about the world and learn with and through. And then again, we've been talking a lot about challenges, and I think Libby used the word opportunities when she spoke as well. So not just about addressing issues, but looking for opportunities to work collaboratively and change the world, I suppose. And it all sounds very very aspirational, and yes, it is, but aspirational is not a reason not to work towards this. So you'll see those words critical and creative feature very strongly there. I'm not going to say much more. I would really encourage and invite you to explore the website and to read and make connections yourself with these ideas, because none of them are new and none of them stand on their own. It's just one way we have developed of bringing some of this thinking together. And I know that Tyler, I'm not sure if she's joined us yet, but she and a team are doing some incredible work in Te Ao Māori. And I'm just going to hand over. Is Tyler with us? Kia ora, Tyler. Ngā mihi nui kia koe. I will invite you to add your beautiful kōrero into a new dimension and perspective.
Cool. Kia ora, Pip. Otira, kia ora tātou. Apologies, I wasn't able to sit in earlier. Currently at home, isolating with my wee whānau. Here I am. So just a quick intro. He uri tēnei nō tūhoi, engari I te Pākehā I konei, I Kirikiriroa. So yeah, from a tribe tūhoi, if you're familiar, sort of central-ish of North Island, but born and bred here in the beautiful Hamilton. And yes, I have the pleasure of working alongside our education team under the big korowai of Kate. So yeah, just a big mahi to our team for all the hard mahi and hours and justification that goes into this kōrero. But yeah, so like sort of Pip mentioned, I look specifically or explore a global citizenship space, but from a distinct Te Ao Māori perspective. It's not to say that all Māori view global citizenship education this way, it's just a kōrero to add to the ever-growing definition of global citizenship education. And so I thought I'd talk to sort of two key points or projects that I'm looking after. So I sort of have some sort of pattern to my kōrero, so I don't go too far off track. Feel free to flick me any questions if you want a bit more info. As you can see, my points are pretty brief. But yeah, I guess I'll start off with ngā hono ngā kiwa. So like our ed team, my mahi too is sort of trying to create an online space that reflects a sort of Māori-centric approach in the GC Ed space. So hononga is our relationships. Kiwa, so I'm not sure how familiar we are, but Kiwa is one of our ancestors who voyaged to Moana Nui a Kiwa, the Pacific, sort of Asia Pacific ocean as such. And so because we are Kates and Asia Pacific is our focus, we thought it would be fitting that we look at his hononga or his relationships, which we sort of, there's kōrero that if you look at Te Moana Nui a Kiwa, we refer to it as like a big sort of marae, our biggest marae that connects us all. And so similar to our ed team, it's based around the 3 big ideas. So I guess our Māori team, we sort of looked at, you know, when we talk about GC Ed, what's one sort of really key theme throughout it. And I think as teachers, we can probably vouch for this, is the importance we place on relationships. And so rather than, me translating sort of frameworks that have been produced, not necessarily from a Māori sort of focused model, we tried to capture the essence in which we focus on in GC Ed, so relationships, hence the hononga, and then in the 3 areas similar to the identity, the connections and challenges, we came up with whakapapa, so that idea of, I think again we're familiar with, you know, kids having a true sense of self, their tūranga waiwai, their ukaipo, all that beautiful stuff, but not just the now, but, you know, where they whakapapa from. So we say in a lot of our kōrero that, you know, global citizenship runs in our whakapapa, that our ancestors voyaged the seas. So, you know, our kids may not do that this day, but actually we're trying to invoke, you know, their bloodlines as such. And then, taututu is, similar, I guess, to the idea of connection, but more so that reciprocity between how we connect, whether that be, you know, tangata to tangata, or actually how we connect to our taiao. You know, we take, but what are we giving back into that space? So pretty straightforward, that space. And then hononga maurua is around this idea of longevity. So, you know, positive relationships or good relationships are based off a long-term period, right? We can't just reach out to people and expect something and then it sort of ends there. So, you know, what are we actively doing to ensure the longevity of our relationships? And again, whether that be person to person, to the taiao, so forth. So I know it's probably, like Pip sort of said, it's very aspirational and whatnot, but I think that's probably part of the tricky part in this space is, you know, how do you best capture something that is so beautiful like GC Ed in like a tangible, somewhat framework. And so that's how this sort of mahi came to be. Any pātai before I skip? Sorry if I'm taking too long too, team. No, all good. All right, can you go to the next, please, Stephen? So another part of the mahi I look after is, so one thing I guess that I wanted to do from the outset was create something tangible or an experience of GC Ed. So this is a little bit of how Te Rangi Tā Miro came to be, so another kaupapa that I look after, again, based off 3 big ideas. And so this kaupapa is, or program, it's regional summits. So we did one here in Waikato, we'll go down to Christchurch in August, and then we'll go to Tauranga in September, finish in Wellington in October. Pretty much in this space, we explore what GC Ed means, but specifically from a rangatahi Māori perspective. So it's a year 10 Māori program. We get a few, like 10 students from a few schools in the Rohe, and then we, over 3 days, explore these 3 big ideas which sit under the mantle of GC Ed. So in the Te Rangi Tāmiro space, we've just slightly altered how we term the concepts, just so that it marries into the overall kaupapa of Te Rangi Tāmiro. So Te Rangi Tāmiro is this idea of sort of twisting fibres together to produce a really strong rope or strong fibre. So if we think about GC Ed, you know, we're wanting kids to experience all these things, get all these learnings, so that, you know, we produce some really strong, proud, confident global citizens. So in that space, whiria is, well, we can all read, so I won't talk too much to what's there. But yeah, on the first day, we sort of placed quite strong emphasis on getting to know the kids, creating like a vibe as such, so that they feel as though they're in a safe environment to really explore and unpack the kōrero that we provide them and the experience as a whole. On the second day, we make emphasis on connecting with the community, so paheretia. And so, for instance, the one that we just had in Waikato, we connected with a couple of our local iwi entities, but then also had element of international connections. So that looked like an hour-long Zoom session with some of our Indigenous whānau in Malaysia. But yeah, that whole idea around connecting and community. And I guess one sort of difference I want to point out is, rather than, like, there's no sort of downplaying the importance of the individual. So yes, we value the rangatahi as they are, but more so placing importance on their role in the community. So shifting it from, yeah, so much as a focus of just the rangatahi, but actually trying to, yeah, really encourage them first and foremost of, you know, being Māori and Indigenous, but also what that looks like in a local community sense and a global, like, what are they doing to sort of create or contribute to that space. And then rukuhia, so yeah, similar to our ed team, global challenges as such, but we sort of, yeah, put strong emphasis on, you know, we pose to our rangatahi, what legacy do they want to create, you know, given the sort of state we're in at the moment, you know, what are they actively doing, or, you know, what would they like to sort of see, what change would they like to see in the world to come. And then I guess, yeah, just sort of finishing off, there's obviously a strong theme across our teams around this idea of, you know, the 3 big ideas, which I think has made it, well, it's a bit easier for my mahi to sort of draw on the expertise of what our ed team have in the sort of Teach APAC, that space. Yeah, so nui ake ngā mihi kia koutou. If you have any questions for me now or comments, feel free. Otherwise, I'm sure you'll get my contact details somehow. And more than happy for you to reach out via email, or if you just want to do a catch-up kōrero. That's me.
Thanks, Tyler. So this is a time to ask Tyler any questions, and after this, we'll be passing over to Mary for the next part.
I don't know about other people, but sometimes I feel like I should have questions.
but I just don't know what they are. So thank you, but I don't have a question, but I do. I just don't know what it is.
No, that's all good. Hey, it was probably like information overload. So, hey, I just appreciate the attention and the attention in this space, I guess. But yeah, like I said, I'm sure we have your contact details. The team have mine. So, should a question come up later, or you just have a pondering that, yeah, you'd love to, I don't know, connect about, then I'm always for that. But in saying that, I would love to stay, but I do have kids here at home. So I'll leave it on, but yeah, just another big mihi to you all. And I think the time's over to you now, Mary.
Kia ora, Tyler, thank you.
Can I just make a quick comment for Tyler? Tyler, I really love that the 3 pillars that you have developed begin with that focus on self, so the learners understanding their own, that they do have a culture and that exploration of their own identity and so on, and that the third one is around longevity, that idea that it's not just about the us and the now, but that leaving the place in a good state in all respects, not just kind of physical sustainability and so on, for the future. So yeah, I'd like to explore that a lot more. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, all I can say is thank you at this point, but definitely keen to connect genuinely, you know, especially if you're based here in Hamilton, or like I said, we have dates coming up where we're down in Christchurch, and for mahi we travel a bit, so yeah, regardless, yeah, keen to connect. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Tyler, and thank you for your kōrero, and thank you, Pip and Libby, also for setting the scene for our next activity, which is less about us talking and more about you being able to think and talk together. So this is the part where we're going to ask you to think about a global citizen for Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I guess with Emma and Lottie, you've got your little global citizens sitting right there with you. So this is a very personal thing for you. So when we think about our young people here in New Zealand, what is it that we want them to be like? What is it we want them to be understanding of? So the knowledge, the skills, the attitudes, the dispositions, all those sorts of things. And, you know, we look at this sort of thing when we do our graduate profiles in schools and things like that to a certain extent, but that often doesn't go to that sort of global citizenship kind of understanding. So what does that mean for you with your understandings at the moment? And how might that actually inform what you do going forward? So whose was this one?
It was mine in Hong Wei, and I think she'd be brilliant at explaining it.
I love it. Way you go.
Shall I explain the little heart and the Lako, and Chris, you can share our the words. First of all, we thought for any global citizen in the future, first of all, you need to think about your own cultural identity and your own culture and your own value, and also all of the infinite values like love and happiness and respect all come from the love heart, the red heart, as who you are. So we put it there. We don't want to label any person, and so to identify the gender and the color but we want the person will represent from inside out as who he or she is, with the love heart. And the stick in the hand is Rako. So we just use one culture, Maori culture, to represent the culture. So I shared my experience with Chris that my two boys, they're born in New Zealand, but they consider themselves as Chinese nationalities living in New Zealand. They fit in with their friends in school, with the culture they bring to Chinese culture they bring to their school community, and they're willing to learn languages, Maori, English, and Chinese, and they're fluent in 3 of them. So we think the cultural identity gives them the strength and confidence to be part of the mainstream community with presentation of who they are. So we wish that the future citizen will have this cultural identity with them to always be participating with themselves with their own culture, and also the rako can be the cultural presentation at the same time, a creation, because with the culture you can be more creative. You can, when you participate with others, you can, when you present your own culture, you can use this as like, we want to say, because in the Maori culture will be part of the function as the weapon, but you can protect yourself with the culture, you can communicate, you can be creative, you can use it as an entertainment tool. And the mainly we want to say is just be part of your community and present and participate with who you are, and be create your values and to contribute your values to the whole society. And especially when you're heading into the global platform, that's the creation of the little person, and Chris will explain the wordings we put in there.
So we haven't, even though the words are on each side of the body, that's not a deliberate thing, it's just the way it is. But the key part, as Hawaii said, is the strength of culture. And so everything else came from that. The participation was a little bit about the games that we played this morning, but again, you've got that cultural identity that comes in there. Your awareness, so that the person is aware of the spaces, the different spaces they're at, which is where the rules of the games can come in. And basically, you'll see a whole combination of the things that we've been through in the first half of today.
Awesome. Thank you, Hongwei and Chris, for sharing that. And I'm sure that if we gave this back to you in another 6 months' time, you'd probably have a slightly different picture that you'd be painting as well, as your understanding was growing. So that's awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, the next one. Very colourful. Is it Jocelyn and Ruth? You just muted yourself, Jocelyn.
Yeah, I did. Ruth, do you want to start talking to this one?
Jocelyn, you tap much more.
Okay. So if I start top left, that foundational understanding on his own, the whole notion that they have a culture, that they have an identity, but more importantly that it's not a fixed thing, and it's not just one thing, that there are different people in different places with different people, and understanding why that happens, and seeing differences as something. So on the right hand side, they're seeing differences as something that are that evoke curiosity rather than a defensive reaction of, that's really weird, we wouldn't do it that way. So being curious about why the differences that they observe occur. And I guess that links really closely to the image that Ruth's got there of how we perceive things, of being able to put ourselves in other people's shoes or look through other people's lenses at these things. So I guess opening up more broadly at the bottom, our global citizen in the New Zealand context will have a really positive attitude to difference in culture and language and every other aspect of difference, but specifically in the New Zealand context in relation to our tangata whenua and our Pacifica people. I guess in terms of action, having that sense that they're not powerless, if we can can nurture the sense that a tiny action is an important action. You know, the first step is always the hardest, that kind of notion of being able to make a difference, that equity isn't some big abstract concept, it's how you act with the person that's sitting next to you in the classroom. So yeah, those kinds of things.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Did you want to add anything, Ruth? Okay, and we had one more group. So I don't see a little picture. So could somebody report back from Jeff, Emma, who else was in the group?
Lottie.
Lottie.
Yeah. Well, I could say this was a most interesting gathering. As you can see, lots of little people involved in this one. Quite a few of the concepts or ideas have been shared above, but I think there was general agreement about the importance of knowing thyself and therefore having a better platform which they can better understand others. Plus the understanding of difference in language and the importance of communication through those languages, as well as an understanding, appreciation of cultural similarities and differences. With these skills of knowledge, skill, and a good, strong growth mindset, which was a part which we focused on, I believe there would be a willingness for the global citizen to explore and share, work together towards a common interest. Now, team, jump in, fill in the gaps.
I think you did very well recording our ins and outs there, Jeff. Yeah, I think a lot of our conversation talked about this idea of growth mindset and our sense of identity constantly growing and changing, others growing and changing, the concept of GCED growing and changing. Yeah, this idea of sort of, as Bob Dylan says, we're constantly in a state of becoming, right? So not fixed in one point, but and then the other part was taking action. We talked a little bit about too. Yeah, lots of things.
Awesome. Any final thoughts, Emma?
Just that, like, you know, it is such a complex world, and I think just having that general open-mindedness and willingness to listen, to understand that world, and then hopefully try and apply some sort of change by looking out for each other, and hopefully we can do all of that while being really understanding.
Exactly. Thank you. And thank you to all the groups for having that conversation. You know, when we look at putting together our Aotearoa New Zealand Global Citizen, we do need to keep in mind that this is our perspective as well. And you know, we are here down in Aotearoa New Zealand. We are not over in some other country in the world. And so we have our own unique perspective and our own unique values and skills and dispositions that we will bring to this global fora. So, you know, really looking at it from that perspective, and you'll see when we talked about our global citizenship framework that we have come at it from that perspective, because there are other things out there, but we need to directly relate it back to our identity and where we're from and how we're looking at engaging with the world. On the slides, you can have a look at, there's another global citizen diagram there, and that was from ENZ, and it has a whole lot of different things on it. I'll let you look at that in your own time, because I can see that right now we have a lot of our Kate's whānau who have joined us for a panel discussion. It is lovely to see all of you, and I don't want to go too far over time. Jan-Marie, Stephen, are you going to, or Libby?
I will, because as I do the questions as well. So, not a Mary. So I would really, really like to welcome our CAPES team members from the North Asia, Latin America and Southeast Asia CAPES. So from North Asia, we have Lena. Welcome, Lena, and Sarah.
Kia ora.
And from Latin America, we have Craig.
Muy buenas tardes. Chao.
Oh, it sounds like he's in the time tunnel or something. And Nikki.
Kia ora.
And from Southeast Asia, we have Brona and Sion.
Kia ora.
Have I missed anybody? Nobody else has snuck in while I've been looking at something else? I think that's good. Okay, so what we've got is we've got some questions for the CAPES team members to answer for us, and as a kind of a panel type discussion. And if there's time, there's a little video that North Asia has got. And if we do run out of time near lunchtime, then Sarah will pop it into the chat, as well as it will also go on the panel slide, so that perhaps you could watch it at lunchtime if we don't get to see it live. So let me just go to our questions. So first of all, here, I've got 3 questions that are for each of you. The first one, why is it important that we know about your region? So let's start with Latin America.
Kia ora, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, beautifully.
Excellent. So my name's Nikki Lima. I'm a program manager with the Latin America CAPE. And in terms of our region and why it's important to know about it, I think it's fair to say that of the 3 CAPE regions, Latin America is the least well known and understood in the APAC setting. Within Latin America, there's a population of over 650 million people and a GDP that's actually greater than the Asian nations combined. So we think it's really important that the teachers understand the region, ancestral links to the region. There are business links, scientific links, governmental links. So it's quite relevant to New Zealand. There are a lot of things in common with New Zealand that people might not know, about Latin America and about the connections that exist there. So yeah, that's part of the reason we think it's important.
Those are some pretty key reasons. So thank you for that. That's great. Sarah or Lena, would you like to take on this question for North Asia?
Yeah, kia ora, everyone. First of all, thanks to our Waikato whānau for organizing this. And I can see some familiar faces. Hi, Joff. Annyeonghaseyo. Yeah, so I work with Lena at NAK, and I'm basically handling our Korean education portfolio. So to answer Libby's question, I think there's obviously geographic, historical, and cultural significance to why we need to understand the North Asia region. But I guess that apart from knowing, it's really about connecting to the region. So I will maybe focus on the word neighbor. So we are obviously in the same, region, Asia Pacific, and we consider North Asia, countries of Japan, South Korea, and of course, Greater China as our neighbors. These 3 countries economically also are key trade partners of New Zealand. Culturally, we're also connected to them. And as we know that we actually lived amongst them as well. So we have Kiwis who also trace their origins from these countries to Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese. And it's very important that we are aware of their culture as well, to be able to better connect and better communicate with them. Lena, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Not to this one, Sarah. Thanks. I'll take the next one though. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Kia ora. Thank you. That's really great. And Brona, or Sion from Southeast Asia.
I can take that one soon if you like.
Yeah.
Kia ora, everybody. My name is Brona. I'm senior program coordinator at the CCAPE. Yeah, similarly to Latin America, Southeast Asia has about 650 million people at the moment, who between them speak about 1,200 different languages. So I think it's important for us to try and get a grasp or to try and understand that, because Southeast Asia as a bloc currently is New Zealand's 4th largest trading partner. So for our audience, or for young New Zealanders, I guess, that's important because it represents a huge opportunity for us to, I guess, try and shape young minds, or to try and spark their interest in the region at that stage, to try and, you know, in the future, these guys are going to be our future entrepreneurs, business founders, policymakers. So this is a great opportunity to spark an interest in the region. And like everybody has said already, so many similarities culturally, but also contrasts. I mean, Southeast Asia, like New Zealanders, big on their coffee. I mean, think of Vietnamese coffee. And then I don't know if anybody has heard of luwak coffee in Indonesia, but famous or infamous. You can probably look it up yourself later just to see how that is made. Yeah, think of just what you have for lunch every day. That has totally influenced our culture here, I think. Think of banh mi, pad thai, all the things you have for lunch here. It's totally influenced how we eat. Both of our nations, I think, backpackers dream, and just think of the melting pots of culture that we have here as a result of that. I think it's totally influenced our culture here, and likewise over there. So I think we have a lot to learn from each other. Yeah, so I think that that's so important from a global citizenship standpoint, to learn from each other in that sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Look, I mean, you've all outlined, you know, so many great reasons why we need to know about your regions, and I think the real common denominator here is that we're in the region. Where, you know, we live in the Asia Pacific, and for so long in New Zealand, we've aligned ourselves so strongly with Europe and North America. And we've had a couple of significant prime ministers in the past who have really sort of actually gone out there and said, no, actually, this is where we live. These are our strong trading, cultural partners, and so on. So thank you so much for those.
Can I just tie one little comment across the Asia Pacific region as well, because there's much from Latin America. But what's exciting for us is that even those, as Nikki said, the ancestral ties, but historically, for example, the Philippines was colonized for 300 years by the Spanish. So as Filipinos, there's so many cultural similarities between Latin Americans and Filipinos or Filipinos, including empanadas and so on. So that kind of cross Asia Pacific learning around, we can seem very different, but also we can be very similar because of those ancestral ties and just the forces of history and nature. And also they're ancestrally and multiple generations of large numbers of Japanese, for example, from North Asia in Peru and in Brazil, particularly from Okinawa. So there's all of just the vagaries of history, the world, and the mixing of peoples. And for me, I guess coming back to global competence education, that's that. How do we inspire that curiosity and all that big mix of young people in New Zealand and Aotearoa to keep on learning, but to reach out to that diversity, as someone said here, because we're a hyper-diverse nation. So we've got one of the most perfect learning environments in our communities and classrooms to do that, and our taxis as well. Anyway,
but I also think, as you said, Craig, yesterday, something that we're going to start seeing the students in classrooms teaching us that, because they're going to know better, you know. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I love that term, kind of intercultural navigators, and the kids are the, you know, specialists in that as well, to guide teachers, principals, their peers, and our communities, where they show that leadership and the languages that they may speak.
Tēnā pai. So you've actually just segued really nicely into the next question, which is a kind of a bit more on the ground of like, what sort of opportunities, projects, events do you offer to support the development of global citizenship education from from your regions? So sorry, I'll start with LATAM.
I'll pass it to Nikki.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki.
Hi there, guys. We do offer a number of programs, projects, opportunities to help support students. Everyone can hear me, right? Yep. Okay. Sorry. These days. To help support students to reflect on their own identities and our national identity, and use frameworks to understand themselves and other people as a base for further learning, for curiosity, people-to-people connections, and language learning opportunities. We've got things for children and young people, such as Toy, which is something that we developed within the Capes. We've got something called LATAM Biz, for example, which is where we used to take high school students pre-COVID times over to Latin America to do a bit of immersion there, and also learn business to business, how things work between New Zealand and a particular part of Latin America. Basically, really all of our programs have some, element, if not all, if they're not fully, global citizenship education, in which we are, attempting to help our Kiwi students understand themselves, their place in the world, the rest of it, to become better at communicating, better at understanding, better at empathizing, and all of the above.
Awesome, thank you. That's so comprehensive. Sion or Brona, I'm going to skip to Southeast Asia now. Would you like to respond to this one?
Yeah, I'll give that one a go. I would say that generally at CCAPE, we would work with you guys at the education team, because obviously we believe you guys to be the experts in the global citizenship education space. So we think that you are best placed to develop these programs. And we obviously partner with you guys then on a program by program basis. And we will then assign you with the appropriate Southeast Asia expert on the project, depending on what it might be. Obviously, one that was just mentioned there by Nikki would be something like Toy, or any program that we would run would obviously have a global citizenship element, just like Nikki said there, just by default. But obviously it would be run by you guys, or have, because like I said, you guys are the experts. That's why the team is in place. That's my understanding. So of course we would, in the first instance, come to you.
Awesome, thank you. I think actually you've hit on a really strong point here, that it's sort of education is threaded throughout everything that you do anyway, isn't it? So it's there. Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so who's it going to be from North Asia, Lena or Sarah?
Yeah, I'd like to comment a little bit on that.
Lena,
so I suppose in terms of this question kind of merges with the next one. I know that Labisa, the examples and the how we're reaching educators and how we are helping educators in our Aotearoa, New Zealand, to engage with our regions and what that has to do with global citizenship. So I could just say that we offer a few different ways, kind of comprehensive, just mostly at the moment due to COVID, we've sort of been restricted to digital exchanges online. However, going forward, we are going to be offering more immersion type and giving opportunities for students to go overseas and experience the culture overseas, as that is actually the life-changing experience. And I mean, speaking for myself, having a bicultural background, having lived in 3 different countries, being abroad is where you really learn about what it is to be immersed in another culture, what it is to learn another language and speak another language. And so it's just, so that I believe very strongly in that. I mean, as was, I think so Libby, all of us were at the conference in Dunedin just this past weekend, and one of the plenary speakers mentioned about the use of technology, how, if it's used well, it can be an amazing tool for cultural exchange. But if it's not used well, it could also be a distraction, and at worst, just a waste of time. So, so having to do both well and having both types of exchanges, so face-to-face and online, is one of the things that we are doing. So in terms of educators, teachers, I'm doing some work with Tuituia Learning Circle. Not sure if any of you teachers are familiar, but they are very much involved in the language teaching space. And we offer some courses. We sponsor some courses for teacher professional development there, which I am involved with on the ground, trying to assist with networking towards helping the program with whatever support we can offer. If it's another networking event for teachers, or teacher relief days to attend the programs, whatever we can do to sort of assist language teachers in their space. And I think, I imagine, so the teachers that are present today are, and I'm sorry if this has already been mentioned, Libby, but are we talking to mainstream education just in secondary or primary, or?
No, all primary, secondary, it can be, yeah, tertiary even.
I see.
I thank you for that. I think this is such a, a strong reminder of how valuable face-to-face interaction can be when we can actually do this. So thanks very much, Lena. I'm going to just move on to the final question, but I'm mindful too that it's lunchtime. So I with your permission, everybody, we will go sort of 5 minutes in, if that's okay, so that we don't have to split this session. So unless there are any kind of major objections, I think we'll do that. So the last question for the panel is, if you can just elaborate a little on some ideas of where you might have supported schools or educators from your regions to connect with New Zealand. So this time, let's start with Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I can think of one project we might have done that with, was a couple of years ago, where we, again, it was easier when the borders were open, when we partnered with the Asian New Zealand Foundation. I think it was in 2019. It was part of the Global Schools Partnership Project, where we sent 6 New Zealand teachers to travel to Jakarta in Indonesia, and they stayed in the homes of Indonesian partner teachers and visited their classrooms to get a taste of Indonesian education, life and culture. And then in June, they returned to New Zealand and did kind of an exchange, and that was really successful. And there's quite a few articles on it online as well, if anybody wanted to read up on that. So that is something that we would obviously hope to redo again once things open up again, because that was really successful. Yeah, so I'll leave it there, just conscious of time. We do have another few examples, but I'll let somebody else take over.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Brona. Let's go to North Asia again. So Sarah, are you going to pick up this one, or?
Yeah, I think Lena has already mentioned about the exchanges and also the teachers training that we do for teachers to support. But I guess as an example, I don't know if we have time to show this video, but just to also say that in the work that we do, we're very mindful of amplifying student voices as well. There's so much that we can learn from the students. So we're here not just to educate or to teach, but to open up platforms for students themselves to share what they think about global citizenship, what they think about the region, what they think about North Korea. So recently, we launched a video initiative that ask the students to share their insights, what they think about South Korea, why they think it's important to connect with Korea and with the wider region. And it's quite amazing what the insights that they've shared. So it's a video collage as an outcome of this initiative. So I will put the link at the chat box. So if you have time, hope you can watch it. It's so inspiring to see, these students share what they think about South Korea and the region, and we're learning a lot from them.
That's really, really helpful, actually. Thanks, Sarah. And if people do have time to have a look at that in lunchtime, that would be really good, because this might, this really might sort of come back into our discussion a little bit later on about things to do in schools. Thank you very much. And Craig or Nikki. Would you like to pick this
yeah,
up?
we'll get Nikki's do it. Yep.
Hi again. Yeah, we are always looking to be kind of, in touch with schools, educators, to find out how to better support them. And a lot of times that involves resources. So we've got a number of resources that are free and available to students, teachers, and schools on our Teach It Pack website. We've got something called the Machu Picchu Learning Tool, which is where teachers can, inside the classroom, bring Machu Picchu and Peru kind of alive, or as we can virtually, that students can kind of do a tour and get in touch with the region in that way. North Asia also mentioned the Strengthening Asia Pacific Language Teachers. So we do try to support Spanish language teachers to get together to either, help improve their Spanish, touch base with other teachers so that they may share resources, connections to pass on to their students. And lastly, I'd like to mention the Winds of Change program that we have, which is at university level and beyond, where we've got Kiwi students working with Chilean students on issues of sustainability. I'd also like to give a little shout out to Jeff Wood, who I believe has that at his, did a kind of spin-off of that, if you will, at school level, which is really just a fantastic thing to hear. I'd love to touch base with you, Jeff, at some point about that, if possible. But yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. This is, look, I mean, you really have all just kind of given us such really, really lovely insight into what you're doing and how connected all of these regions are to what we're doing as well, and to us in New Zealand. And just, a shout out to all of the Three Capes regions, because they do so much. They have some amazing resources. Please do, hook up with them. We can give you contact details. Look at their social media posts. There are really interesting opportunities that do come up for educators and students from time to time. So yeah, do keep an eye out, and we'll make sure we get all those contact details out to everybody. Some of the resources really are incredible. So hopefully you get a chance to look at the one that Sarah's put in there. And also you're going to be having a look at one that Pip referred to earlier on, that Ellen is going to show us, that shows that's a really wonderful interactive game that shows aspects of all the regions. So I think,
just as a little
Nikki,
reminder, guys. So sorry, Libby. All of our CAPE information is available through a monthly newsletter. So if you please sign up to the newsletter, you would receive up-to-date information about the latest programs that we've got running, resources that we're sharing, where you can find them, how you can use them, how to touch base with us. If you would like so, you could find it on our website.
Can somebody pop a link into the chat for that?
Yes, give me just a second.
That would be really awesome.
I'll do it.
Thanks, Brona. That would be really fantastic. Thanks so much.
Bonjour, Hélène. Bienvenue. Welcome, Hélène, to the Capes Regional Forum, and welcome back to all of you. And I see Brona has joined us again as well, which is fabulous. As I said before, unfortunately, two of our participants, Hongwei and Chris, have had to leave. But for those of you who are staying, it's a great pleasure to introduce you to Elaine Unson, who is from the Capes team at the University of Otago in Aotearoa. She is the driving force behind a very exciting digital game that is being launched any minute. And I'm not going to speak about it because I want to give Elaine as much time as possible to share the game with you. And I know that she's particularly interested in questions and feedback from you. So kia ora, Elaine. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Kia ora koutou. Before I talk, I'll actually let Jean-Marie share the video that we've put together about the game. This is a bit of a history.
Okay.
If you're a teacher, then you know about global citizenship education, teaching our kids about us and how to live together in harmony. It's important work and it's becoming a bigger part of the curriculum, but sometimes it's hard to know where to start. So, at the Centres of Asia Pacific Excellence, with the help of the University of Otago and Maui Studios, we've created an awesome free educational video game that will teach kids about the Asia Pacific region and being a global citizen. It's called Aotearoa Explorers, and here it is. Created with the help of teachers and tested by kids, Aotearoa Explorers lets students jump in easily, create a character, and then begin to explore the world. With your guidance, of course. As students embark on their journey across Asia, Latin America, and Aotearoa, our support resources will empower you to teach global citizenship with confidence, linking gameplay to deeper learning and encouraging students to be curious about the world and their place in it. Aotearoa Explorers is all in browser, so there's no files to install. Just click on the link and you're in. Once you've created an account, a simple room code will put all your class in the same place, and the teacher's dashboard gives you a fast way to see everyone's progress. Available in English and Te Reo, Aotearoa Explorers is an awesome way to engage your students in global citizenship education. Apparently they're all into games. Who would have guessed? Just click the link below and see for yourself. Told you it's easy.
Thank you very much, Jean-Marie. We'll also share the video with all of you after this forum so that you can rewatch it with captions if need be, and then share it around. Yes, so as Pip said, I've been working at the University of Otago to develop, with the help of Maui Studios, Aotearoa Explorers, which is our digital game. So I'll share a little bit more of information with you guys about the game, but I really am interested in just answering the questions that I'm sure you'll have to make sure that you've got, I guess, all the tools and knowledge you need to use the game should you decide to do so. So in terms of who's been involved, Maui Studios have been developing the game for almost a year now. We've got, of course, teachers across Aotearoa. So there's been, so some of you have been involved in the process of giving feedback throughout the months. And that's been with a variety of teachers and in different ways. Of course, the students, so it's aimed at year 5 to 8 students. And so we've had many loops of feedback at various stages of the game. And that's been critical for us because at the end of the day, that's who the game is for. We've got academics from the University of Otago who've been wonderful in terms of giving me their take on things. And so they've been from the College of Education, the Global Studies Department, Geography, Information Technologies, and they've been very good at just, seeing the game for what it is, saying what they thought of it, what should be improved, what was already good, and that's been critical for us. Then obviously the Capes, so all 3 teams, North Asia, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. There's been, for instance, Brona, who's on this call, has been incredible from the Southeast Asia team in terms of, making sure that each culture is represented appropriately, putting us in contact with people from those regions as well at every step of the way. And then other stakeholders, so just anyone, places like Enviro Schools, Education New Zealand, just anyone who sees value in this game and thought they should give us their opinion and feedback on the game. So it touched a little bit on this in the video, but there are 30 locations that the kids can explore. And you can see this is kind of their main map that they always come back to. And once they've explored one of the levels, they get to have a little tick on there. And it's easy for them to keep track of what's been explored and what is left. There's the Kakapo companion at the bottom of the screen at the moment who just follows them around the entire game, gives them instructions, more information, And for the kids, there's just, I guess, a bit of familiarity throughout the entire game. And then at the top, which is important, is the volume control. There's quite a bit of music from the individual regions that's been specifically made for this game. And so the volume can be brought up or down as needed in the classroom. In terms of locations, I'll go through this quite quickly, but you'll see that there's a variety of regions, and the kids get to pick the order that they want to explore the different regions in. And for us, that's been quite successful because some kids will be drawn to certain areas, whereas other kids will be drawn to others. So we've got 3 countries in North Asia, and then 3 countries in Southeast Asia, and then 3 in Latin America as well. And you can see even just from those previews, the diversity within those levels when it comes to just characters, colors, types of sceneries. And I'll say that's a real strength of the game, really. And then we've got some local levels because we thought, through conversations with the education team, that global citizenship is also about, understanding where you're from and your own kind of local level and your place in the world. So we've got 3 New Zealand levels that the kids can explore as well. And those are just some of the, I think, 80 plus non-playable characters that the kids can interact with. And so through each interaction, they learn more about the country that they're in, maybe this person's history or this person's current, occupation, for instance. And you can see just from those 3 that are up on the screen, we just have so much variety, I guess, of characters that they can talk to. The video briefly mentioned the teacher's dashboard as well. So I won't go into too much detail, but it really is very straightforward. At the teachers forum last year, teachers were saying, well, we need to be able to keep track of what the kids are doing. We don't want it to be too detailed because we don't want it to create additional workload for us. So we found a good compromise in terms of safety for the kids, ease of access for the teacher and for the kids. So it's as easy as creating an account, and it just sends you a password and a code via email, and then you can just log on. Once you've logged on, it gives you access to your own class's dashboard. And so you've got a classroom code here. And so what you would do is just tell the kids in your class, well, here's the classroom code. And then when they want to log on, they just put the classroom code and their first name, which is what would appear down here. And so they don't need to create an account. They don't need to link it to anything. It's just the classroom code and the first name. If you want to keep track of what they're doing, you can see as they progress through the levels when they've completed them. And it's pretty straightforward. Another aspect is customization, which from the kids' standpoint was the non-negotiable. So teachers wanted the dashboard, the kids wanted the avatar. So we've just made sure that the kids get a variety of options. It doesn't ask them to pick a gender or a name or anything like that. They just make it look however they want it to look. And I can say from seeing kids in person on Monday playing with the game that that's a big hit. But it surprised me how much, they enjoyed the rest as well. Like this is just a plus for them. So we've done it in a way that they get to do it at the start of the game. And then once they've completed levels, they can do it. But if it's their first time within a level, they can't just customize. And the idea behind this is some teachers have said, well, that's wonderful, but we don't want it to turn into a customization contest. So that's what we've done. At the start of each level, the kids get objectives. And so they're pretty straightforward. Since I've made this slide, there's also a quiz as the 4th objective. And so that just tells them, what their mission is for that level. And so there's the possibility of at any time in the level going back to those objectives. They can go back to the map and then to the scrapbook that I'll show you in the second as well. And then the little thing you see here at the top is actually for anyone who'll be using this on tablets. Our studios have kindly added a touch feature so you can still move around the level, just with your fingertips. the scrapbook that I talked about. So as the kids evolve through the levels, their scrapbooks will fill up. So when they first start, it's empty. So you can see here, I left this one. I did not interact with this person, and so it's still left to be filled in. But I've taken pictures, I've interacted with people, and so it fills up as I go. And that's something the kids love, because there's this aspect of, you know, kind of collecting interactions with people, and then they've got a bit of additional information as well. And so there's a scrapbook for all of the different levels that they go through. At the end, as I mentioned, there's a little quiz. And so if the student gets the answer wrong, it pops up as red, but they can kind of try again until they get it right. And that's the only way that they can complete the level. So we try to find the balance between competition, but then also not excluding kids that potentially would not manage to complete the quiz. So they get the reward of completing the level, but there's multiple attempts that they can have if they need to. And the information as well that is kind of comes through the dialogues is what they're going to be asked about in the quiz. And so we found that some kids, you know, the first level, they just didn't really pay attention to the conversations they had with the people of this region. And then once they figure out that there's a quiz at the end, they're a lot more careful and attentive the next level, which is kind of what we were hoping for. In terms of teachers' resource, I won't go into too much detail just timing wise, but with the help of Pip, I've helped Pip, she's not helped me. Pip's put together a wonderful teacher's resource throughout the past few months. It was a lot of work, but I think it's added so much value to this game, because it will give you guidance on the content of the game itself. So this is just a couple of pages of the booklet itself, but you don't need to play the game to see what's in it. At a glance, you can just tell who the kids are going to interact with, what they're going to learn about. She's provided some wonderful questions for kind of understanding, you know, the notion of global citizenship in a way that relates to the game. There's also all the kind of frameworks that the education team have been working on for however long, but for a long time. And so this resource will be, just like the game, available in both English and Te Reo Māori. And the aim for us is just not create additional workload, not give you a lesson plan, because teachers seem to think that, you know, you'll know how to use the game in your own kind of classroom, you know what's best. So we're just providing you with guidance, and you can use this booklet. So it's a physical booklet, hard copy, that you can also download as a PDF, just to kind of help out a little bit and at least know where to start. And then the last thing, which is quite a positive thing to end on, is just some of the feedback from the kids. Maybe some of those comments might actually be from some of you students even. But yeah, I just took the comments as they were provided. And what I like about those is different kids like different things. On Monday, one of the kids that played the game was very interested in the technical side of it. So he was asking me, you know, what kind of coding is it, and what was it developed on, and how did the developers work on this specific thing? And to me, that was just a reminder of different kids will connect with different aspects of the game. Some of them love the non-playable characters and the diversity, and just, you know, the different outfits and all those things. Whereas others, just the quiz, I think, was just triggering a bit of a competitive side of their personality. But it's, yeah, lovely to see kids enjoying the game, really. So I'll shut up now, because I know I've thrown a lot of information at everyone, but very keen to kind of get your guys' take on this. I know I've got just a couple of minutes left. But any feedback would be welcome. And I know Stephen will be sharing a feedback form as well, just very, very simple and quick, but just to get you guys' input once again, because this is what's made this game so good, I think.
Thank you so much, Elaine, and please do. Yeah, I agree. Jeff, I just saw in the chat, Jeff's written, wow, congratulations, Elaine. There has been a huge expansion and upgrade over the past 4 months. This is an excellent tool for classroom teachers to help encourage students to explore our Pacific Basin countries, cultures, and geography. Thanks, Jeff. I know that will be very valuable feedback for you, Elaine.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeff.
Keep it coming.
Yeah, and thank you to your students as well for providing feedback. I think that the wonderful thing with students as well is that they're so honest, and so they can pinpoint very small things that they really like or very small things that they struggle with, and I think that's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, thank you so much again, Ellen. And it's very exciting to see what a high quality tool it is, a learning tool. And this will be accessible through the CAPE's education website, which is the Growing Global Citizenship Education in Aotearoa, New Zealand. There'll be a page where you can download the teacher's guidebook in Te Reo and English, and the glossary, which Ellen didn't have time to mention, of all the words that the students will come across as they adventure around the region. So it's pretty comprehensive. And just while we've got you, we really want to hear your stories about how you're using this game in your classroom, because obviously this game is in many ways a catalyst. It's to spark the interest and the pleasure, and as Elaine mentioned, different aspects will resonate with different students. So please do let us or obviously Elaine know, because we will come and ask you to share your story and so that we can share it with other educators and young people.
And even through, the game is about to launch, but just through the kind of testing process, teachers have given me so much diverse feedback in terms of how they'll use the game. Just on Monday, talking with a high school teacher from South Auckland, she was saying some of the kids, this is year 5 to 8, so not high school, but she was saying some of the kids in her school still have issues with reading. And so she was saying, would you mind if I use this game in my classroom just to kind of encourage literacy in an engaging way? Because sometimes I struggle to make them, read stuff if they're not captivated. And to me, that's just, that's wonderful. I've also had teachers say, well, we've got some very high achievers in my class, and I don't even want to make them do while they wait for others. So I could just make them play the game as well. So I think, there's going to be a variety of things in between those two examples. And that's what we want to encourage. Pip and I have talked a lot about, what matters to us is just you guys making it work for your own context. And that's kind of circling back to the reason why you don't have a lesson plan for this. And instead you've got just a bit of a guiding kind of resource that gives you everything you need to know to make it for you, basically. But yeah, does anyone have any questions, any worries, any things you're pondering about? Well, okay, then I'll ask you guys a very quick question. The game is basically ready to launch at this point, and we're just taking, another week or so to just sift through it for the for the last time to find any potential mistakes or bugs that we could find. And so we're just taking a little bit of extra time. But other than that, it's ready to launch. My thought process is to launch it when everyone comes back from the school holidays. But I also understand that there's a bit of value in launching it before that, so that teachers can have a think about how they would want to embed it, in whatever they're planning on teaching in the coming months. So I'd actually love to hear you guys' take on when's the best time to launch it. What would be best for you as a teacher?
I know often teachers want to have a little bit of time just to explore for themselves first and to think about how they're going to use it with their students. So probably a little bit before the term starts sounds like quite a good idea.
Yeah, that sounds good. Would people agree with that? Yep, getting some good nods. All right, well then we can do that. That's the beauty of this, is we can just do what you guys need. All right, well, wonderful. So that's probably it for me. If you want to check out the game, so as I said, it's, we're not promoting it as launched just yet, but you can actually, with the link that is here, just access the game yourself on Google Chrome is what works best, and you can just see what I'm talking about. But thank you so much for your time.
Ngā mihi nui ki a koe, Ellen. Safe travels. Thank you so much for fitting us in on your busy schedule.
No, it's always a pleasure. This is who I like to meet with.
I think this is the beginning of something very exciting, and we look forward to hearing from students and teachers.
Yeah, I'll send everyone who's interested just a link to the game and a link to the pages, because now that we've kind of launched this promotional video that you've just seen for the first time, you guys were the first ones to see it. We'll make it public and then launch the game a little bit of time before school starts again. Thank you so much.
Safe travels, Ellen. Thank you.
I think we're back to me now, to a bit of getting started. Is that right, Pip?
Sure, I was just doing that bit. So yeah, I think it's on to you, Libby.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That was really amazing. What a fantastic game. And I think Emma just said she wished she was teaching primary now, but I think secondary kids would love that. I think anybody would. It's really such a sort of visually beautiful experience and fun as well. So such a great thing that that showcases, the whole region and Aotearoa, New Zealand as well, which is wonderful. So now we kind of want to get on to a bit of sort of practical stuff. How do you get started? And, what are the takeaways? What can you do when you get back to your schools? And what could you share with other friends or colleagues who might want to be getting started with global citizenship education? And it really doesn't need to be sort of that fancy or use a lot of resources to get started. There's not necessarily a great cost, but so I've just got a few tips that I've picked up from having set up whole school models in a couple of schools, and you sort of see what works and what doesn't so much, or some things you learn the hard way. And some of these things I've picked up advice from others as well. So I think I always say, give it a name, a home, and someone to look after it. And what I mean by that is it's got to exist. It's got to be named. So if you actually sort of commit to having global citizenship education in your school, then name it and make sure somebody's going to look after it. And so this is kind of a message to go to senior leaders as well. It's so easy for really good initiatives to be run by one keen teacher, and then that teacher goes or gets another responsibility and the thing slips away. And that's so disappointing. This global citizenship education is a real thing. It's a really fast growing thing. There's a groundswell of interest. And even if it doesn't stay exactly the same in its current form, it will morph into sort of similar things. It'll grow and develop. So I think this is not a fly-by-nighter, and this is quite often a difficulty. We know when we're trying to introduce things, and we, as teachers, we're all like, oh my God, what's this now? Is this going to be some new thing like thinking skills that'll be gone next week or whatever? This is not like that. It's actually, it is a developing, growing thing. So having somebody to look after it, and that really probably means a management unit and a bit of time, so that actually it does have a proper name and home, and it means that students have got somewhere to go with it as well. Obviously the incoming male has got somewhere to go, because otherwise all those opportunities get lost, and a lot of opportunities come into schools, and they just sort of go into the info and never get any further. So I think those things are very, very important. And then, you really, to get the kind of buy-in that you need from the rest of the school, you've got to be a little bit careful about that, because you don't want to be going sort of, hey, guess what, everybody, we're going to be doing this new thing. And, and that always, or that can create some real fears about, what's this going to, what's this we have to add into our already crowded curriculum, when in fact this is a framework that supports what you're already doing and what you want to do. So it's not necessarily adding something on top. But we know, there are so many pressures on schools to sort of be everything to everyone, to be everything to their students. And this is a really, really nice framework that captures a lot of the kind of holistic stuff that we know we need to be doing to kind of, break out of the silos and address well-being and problem solving and that kind of thing. So when you are approaching the rest of your school to bring this in, and you're having your sort of careful, softly approach, is be really careful to value what's already going on. Because one of the first kinds of things you might get is, oh, well, we do that already, or some other kinds of responses. But if you actually sort of start by saying, do you know what, this is actually global citizenship education or education for sustainable development, all these kinds of things, this is found everywhere. It doesn't belong, it's not a subject, and it doesn't belong to one faculty. So there can be a bit of a sort of an idea that it's a social science or something like geography. But in fact, if you start looking around in your school, you'll find that it exists everywhere, and sometimes in the most surprising places. So if you can kind of start from that place and pull together the stuff that the teachers are already doing and really, really value it. In fact, not just that the teachers are doing, but some support staff and other parts of the school, because this, to be really effective, it's got to be whole school. So you might find some really amazing stuff going on in the library. There might be some operations stuff to do with procuring, more sustainability in procurement, like they're starting to get electric leaf blowers or whatever. You find that it's in all kinds of places, or the tuck shop might be using less packaging or sourcing locally and so on. So if you just start looking around at what's actually going on, that can be really, really helpful. And also, you don't have to do it all at once. You can start small. So, that's really fine. You just don't want to freak everybody out right at once, I think. And communicate well. Communicate it really well. Do some really good things in the newsletter. Let people know what you're doing, what the plans are. Let them be part of it. And I've also put here, get the students involved. This is really key. And it goes in both parts here, the leadership and the buy-in part, because the students will get comfortable with the language very, very quickly of global citizenship education. And the others, the adults, will quite often catch on through them. And as well as bringing in the students. So say a really good example is to get a global citizenship committee going with a prefect, preferably if you can fit that into your structure, and some wider kind of global citizenship groups. So for example, at my last school, we had a wider global citizenship group that was not a group that meets each week or anything like that, but a group within which students could identify with issues and interests and skills. And so they could get together and create their own various kinds of actions, which took a little while to take hold. But once they kind of got the idea of it, some pretty interesting things started happening. The other thing too, when you bring in students, you can start bringing in parents as well. And you can get some very, very interesting stuff going on in your school. So over time, the whole thing becomes kind of like a contract for the school. There is no set model, so you can align it to your school's values. We are available to come and help in any way that you like. We can offer free professional development, and we can come and work with you, with senior leaders, with students, on actually how to kind of make a bespoke model for you that really, really suits. So there's many, many ways that this can be done, but it's, you've really got to have that, as we all know, you've got to have that kind of ownership yourselves to make it really, really work for your school. And I think in the next slide, we're really this is just building on what I've already been talking about making sure that you've really seeing what's already going on there and building on from that, and really looking at the opportunities and possibilities that are there in your school already, and looking to partnerships with other schools. There are also amazing partnerships through the Capes, but also through other partners like UNESCO and so on, where you can really connect with students from all around the world. So I think I'm going to just leave that bit there, and please get in touch anytime if you want any help. All up for visiting and helping you work through this. And I think now we've got a little bit of a stretch break, just very little, because sometimes the after lunch all the enzymes go from our brain to our stomachs and we get a bit tired. So we just have a little stretch and a couple of deep breaths, and then Jan Marie is going to take you through a design thinking exercise. That's Jan Marie is modeling the stretching beautifully.
Very strange with the background. bits of me disappear.
Okay, over to you, Jan Marie. I think we're all stretched.
Okay. Give me a sec. Just make sure that I'm in the right place here before I share my screen. Okay, so I was wanting to just have a little talk about a possible framework for global citizenship education. And some of you may already be aware of the design thinking process, but the sort of problems and opportunities that global citizenship education presents fit absolutely beautifully within a design thinking framework. So the first element of that is empathizing. And so it's basically finding out from everybody involved in whatever it is that you're thinking about, whether it be a challenge or an opportunity or whatever, is finding out everybody that's involved, all the stakeholders, everybody who has something to do with it, and finding out what their feelings are about this, finding out what their beliefs are, finding out what they see as a challenge, finding out what they see as the opportunities, find out their point of view. So it's really important that you actually understand the point of view, and then you can actually define what it is that you're doing, whether it be a challenge or an opportunity, clearly define it. Ideate, you're then moving on to finding different possibilities, and the world's your oyster in this. Is just free ideating. You then develop some prototypes of what might work and test them. I'm just going to show you a little video, which I think encapsulates this quite nicely, which I hope. Libby, I can see you on the screen, so if the sound is working, can you just give me a thumbs up?
Hi there. Have you noticed that the world is full of problems? There are big, hairy problems, like poverty and disease, and small annoyances like misplacing your keys. However, the geniuses at Stanford have come up with a process that will broaden your perspective and help you create better solutions no matter the type of problem. This process is called design thinking, and it's here to change the way you tackle problems. Design thinking encourages people to explore new alternatives, creating options that had not existed before. Design thinking is successful because it focuses on the needs of the user. It's more than just good ergonomics, it's about understanding the context and culture of the stakeholders involved. This understanding is found using direct observation and qualitative data, which produces stories that people can really empathize with. Once the research is conducted, the problem solver is more apt to define what the real problem is. After diagnosing the true problem, it's time to ideate or brainstorm new ideas without the constraints of existing solutions. Because design thinkers learn by doing, these radical ideas are then made into simple prototypes that test possible outcomes. Rapid prototyping speeds up the innovation process because we only learn about the quality of our ideas when we test them in the real world. The process of ideating, prototyping, and testing is repeated early on so that mistakes are quick, cheap, and ultimately lead to success. So, why design thinking? The process provides a method and a unifying language for multidisciplinary collaboration, leading to greater creativity and better solutions faster. Suddenly, the world's problems are simple and manageable with design thinking.
Okay, so has anybody had a I'm just going to stop my share so I can see the people. Okay, has anybody used a design thinking process in their classrooms?
I did so I'm a science teacher, my background is in physics. So I don't do anything within science for it, but I had a class of year 10s that I did focusing on sort of volunteering and sort of charity type thing. And so we used the design thinking model, though I was very, I looked really good, but underneath I was going, oh. And I used that as a way to sort of come up, look at ourselves, look at the problems around us, look at how we might be able to help, and then how that might equate into volunteering or supporting an organisation or whatever. And we had reasonable success.
Oh, excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And I think it's quite normal for us to feel a bit when we're starting off with anything new like this. So anyone else had a go at using it or something similar? Okay, so anyone think that this might be something that will have a try with? Yep. Okay. So when we're using the process, it's quite a good idea if you haven't used it before, is maybe start with something in your local area. So explore sort of issues, challenges, opportunities within your school community or your local community, so that you get a good idea of how the process works. And it's a lot easier to access people who are involved in the issue when you are starting within a small area than it is once you start, getting into the bigger, wider program problems and opportunities. Okay. Right, I think we're now moving on to who's the next person.
I think that's me. Jean-Marie was talking about next steps. Would you like people to respond in the chat, Jean-Marie?
Actually wondering if people want to go into some breakout groups, because I think we've got time for that. So they could go into a couple of groups and just have a little chat about what your next steps are and then share back.
Okay, I will just stop my sharing. I'll set up some breakouts and we'll just give you a few minutes to have a chat about those questions which are on slide 41, just thinking about some next steps for yourselves. So breakouts, just one moment. All right, welcome back everybody. I hope that was a good discussion for you. We are going to ask you very soon what is like a key takeaway that you've got from today. So we'll ask you to share that verbally in a moment. But I'm just going to screen share one more time with you to just talk a little bit about how we can support you and some of the work we do. I'll just bring that up for you. So I have this slide here to show you just now. So I just want to remind you that we are the Capes Education team, and we're part of the Capes wider whānau. But we actually are all about teacher professional development. So here are just some things that we wanted to share with you for you to think about. Essentially, we are working to support the Capes regions. We're always creating resources for the Growing Global Teachers in Aotearoa website. We have some waiting in the background to publish soon. And one of those that we're quite keen to do is, we currently call them learning stories, is to talk with teachers or students and then create articles around those. We share them back with the people involved for approval and consent, and then we publish them on the website. So if you think you have a narrative or some kind of story or an event you'd like to share, you can get in touch with us about that. We also provide professional development for teachers in schools. There's a number of ways we can do that. So we can cover the costs for you to have a one-on-one time with a facilitator. We could be meeting with you online or face-to-face. We can prepare workshops. We can help you apply for ministry-funded PLD that comes under one or more of the topics of cultural capability, local curriculum, digital fluency, or assessment for learning. And as you've heard across today, global citizenship really can fit under many of those headings. Colleagues, anything else you'd like to add here?
So one thing that we've talked about possibly is setting up some Zoom sessions that are just shorter sessions where any of you or some of your colleagues would get together and we could just have a little chat about how things are going in your school, or how or to help you to network with people from other schools. So that is something. So it's really just asking you, really, what is it that you want us? How can we support you?
Fantastic. Thanks, Jan Marie. Any other comments?
I'll jump in, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that comes out of Libby's presentation is that importance of getting buy-in. And from my seat, I think what's most important at this time is to try and get buy-in from the leadership teams across New Zealand schools. There are individuals at schools that are willing and wanting to do things, but there are too many barriers created, and it's primarily because of lack of understanding by the leadership teams. Leadership teams are looking at all the other issues which they're having to deal with in their kit, and I don't know how they can. At this stage, I don't think they understand perhaps how they can help and encourage these type of activities without stepping on too many toes amongst other staff. And I think quite often those persons that are passionate about this activity and their voices aren't being heard within their school.
Mm.
And I'm fortunate where I'm placed, but I do know in talking to colleagues across the country, and also across the world, that if they don't have that buy-in by their leadership team, they're going to continue to struggle to be able to convince the students to participate in extracurricular activities, which might involve global connections, those types of things, and additionally within the school, where the curriculum, well, I shouldn't say the curriculum, but a lot of the instruction is trying to continue to tick those boxes of having covered items for credit at the upper level, or competencies which are being often driven by special interest groups.
These are such great points that you raise, Jeff, and they're very real. And I think there's a lot of approaches to it, but I think when you're well, one thing, if anybody's got any senior leaders, to encourage them to come to our forums, or for us to come and visit to do any planning with senior leadership. But I think the way to sell it to senior leadership is that this is a way that really helps you to actually tick some of the boxes that you really need to in that well-being area and international students area, because of course this is a key goal in the international education strategy. So this is, that's something to focus on. So there are a number of ways to say, look, actually, this really is a way to help our school, also point a difference and that kind of thing. There are various different arguments, but I think there are some really practical ones in terms of actually, everyone knows that they need to be doing something about living more sustainably and all of those kinds of things. So if you can, but again, it's a bit by infiltration, so you get an interested teacher who's coming along, they know who's the DP at their school who's likely to be a little bit interested, get to them, we can come and help talk to them, whatever. But it's all, you just kind of get in whichever way you can, but you're absolutely right that it needs that top-down support to really get anywhere.
Any other comments or questions? All right. So we're really interested to hear from you at this stage. What is one thing that is kind of at the top of your mind that you are taking away from today? And there might be more than one thing, but we're asking for you, what is the main thing that's bubbling up for you right now? And we're just asking you to unmute and share that around the screen at this stage.
One thing for me is just mine now is like, okay, what is my school doing? And are there people already working in this space? Because I don't know. My principal and I went on that trip to Hangzhou a couple of years back, and things in some ways have petered out significantly. And now I'm just like, well, where has it landed? And Libby, thank you for sort of talking through some of those points, because I'm now like, okay, I need to go and talk to that principal who went with me to China and be like, are we going to do something about this or are we not? Because I think for me, I wouldn't say I'm highly passionate about it, but at the same time, I can totally see how it's just kind of it should be part of our general lives. So I can see that I probably am passionate about it, but I'm kind of not. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
no, it totally does actually.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on maternity leave at the moment, which is also sort of a weird thing where I'm not actually part of school, but I kind of am. And so I'm also wondering where the heck that's going to go as well. I'm going back next year, but yeah. So yeah, that's my one thing.
I think what you're kind of alluding to is that it's not this kind of big standalone thing. It's actually something that's woven through everything, through our lives and all of school. So it's a good way to be feeling about it.
The other thing, Emma, you know, in that space in 2018, that was the start of the interest in this kind of thing, right? And so when Libby's talked about give it a home, you know, you can reignite that conversation with the principal and say, you know, if you're really interested in trying to gain some, you know, some interested voices within the school, that could be something that you could say, look, can I have a, you know, have a go at giving this a home and work with some people on this, you know, and so, you know, you can be that voice to start something and reconnect with some of those ideas that were started all those years ago, but that sort of have drifted off into the everything else has become sort of more important kind of scheme of things. Yeah, happy to do that with you.
So I'm not on mute. There we go. Emma, I want to say thank you. So you're talking about finding out what is happening in your school, which is, you know, compounded on by being on leave at the moment. I understand. So thanks. Who else would like to share what is the kind of main takeaway they have at this stage? Jocelyn.
Yeah, I'm just looking back at the Padlet wall and seeing what I wrote about what I hope to gain from today, and I wrote down connections with others interested in this field. So I've definitely achieved that. It's been really good to see Emma. I used to teach at Raccoon High School many years ago, so we've got that in common, and I hope when you go back that we can touch base and see what develops there, because I would love to be part of that journey if that works, and support and learn from what happens in your school. I've also connected with Jeff, which I will follow up and look at, because a key interest is, as I explained in our breakout group, is looking at how I can unsilo some of the teaching in our initial teacher education courses, and starting with one that I teach into with learning languages, which is taught alongside social sciences. And I see this as a way of us being able to be more integrative in our approach at that level, at an individual course level, and then maybe filtering out across the program. So yeah, so that's been a big win for me, just to be able to make those connections. Thank you.
Gosh, doing that having an opportunity to do some interdisciplinary stuff like that is really good. It really helps to make those connections.
Jocelyn, can I just make a connection with you? I've been teaching in the Learning Languages cohort in our secondary program at Waikato, and very small cohort, but one of the meta papers is around connecting the curriculum, which the language teachers really seem to struggle with. And I understand too that to a certain extent, we're preparing them for a reality that doesn't exist because it is so siloed. But interestingly, because of my involvement in this project, I did a sort of a workshop with them around global citizenship education and the opportunities for learning languages being a vehicle. I think Libby's used the word in the past, a catalyst for global citizenship education, and a wonderful way of integrating learning around that big conceptual idea, not just learning languages connecting with other curriculum areas, but other curriculum areas connecting with the language learning and teaching. So it's really exciting to think that that's, I mean, I don't know whether anything will happen at Waikato, but if it's happening at Canterbury, that would be, yeah, so can really just, that what you said resonated with me.
It's interesting. So is that a module within a course, the connecting the curriculum, or is it a course on its own?
No, it was, we had these meta papers, so everyone is getting the same sort of pedagogical content, and then the lecturers work with the cohorts within their designated curriculum areas. Yeah, so the social sciences people came together, the science people came together, the learning languages people came together. So that was where we contextualized the big understandings or the big ideas around connected curriculum and evidence-based practice, for example. Yeah.
So you mentioned a small cohort. Is this secondary language teachers? Or
secondary language, secondary.
Okay. And I'm working with primary students who often go, well, yeah, I haven't learned a language, you know, and all those sorts of things. In fact, I had a lecture yesterday at the beginning of a new course, a new semester 2 course, and the very first comment from the students was, well, where do we fit that in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where, and I think, you know, in the primary, it's absolutely right. And a lot of it, Mary, I think, alluded to, or one of the slides talked about localized curriculum. And for us, it's a way of integrating the learning in primary settings so beautifully around this idea and through this lens. Yeah. So would love to see what you're doing and hear how it's going. Yeah.
Sure. We'll keep in touch. Thanks, Pub.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Connections all round. It's great.
Sorry, Pip, you just mentioned the secondary things, the other curriculum, you know, and understand, you know, the culture and the language, that kind of thing. So have you already got some, you know, just like a few topics so we can use it directly in secondary school? Because, you know, in our school, and at the moment, other curriculum teacher, you know, we have much more international student and refugee student. They come from, you know, all different culture background. So the other subject teacher just mentioned it is, you know, they don't know how to help, you know, this kind of student. Yeah, they know we need, you know, connect to their culture, their language, but it is so hard for, yeah. So we just think about how, if you guys have this kind of, just a few, you know, the task bit, I don't know, just all the things we can, you know, use as examples. So that would be.
Ruth, I could get in touch with you. I've got quite a lot of material that could be helpful for you, because some of the students I worked with were actually English language teachers. So working with students whose mother tongue was not English. And so it's still applicable. That intercultural communicative language teaching is really valuable. So I'd be really happy to get in touch with you and answer questions or share anything that I've got access to.
Yeah, just some resources or that kind of things. Yeah, would be very helpful. Thank you.
I'll send you an email, and then you've got my email address.
Okay.
Thank you, Ruth.
All right. Any other takeaways from today?
I think for me, it's always about the connections that we make, and it's a very small elite group of participants left here at the end.
So yeah, just really great to reconnect and connect again. And I think I said earlier, we learn so much from listening to you and hearing what is going on in your context and settings. So thanks so much for taking the time to be with us, because we know it's a big commitment. So kia ora, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou.
Well, everybody, we're just about to wrap up soon, but we're really asking you please to have a look at our evaluation form and give us some feedback. And it also gives you a chance to tell us more about what you might need from us. So in the link is the chat to the evaluation form. We'll stay here with you just for a few minutes to finish that off. Couple more reminders, and then we'll finish with our karakia whakamutunga to finish off the forum today. So we'll just give you some time on that evaluation form. All right, are we happy for us to finish off the session today? I'll just do some screen sharing for the last time. Okay, so just a couple of reminders for you. We are still keen to get some feedback for Elaine on her Aotearoa Explorers game, and you can give feedback at the link on this page, this slide. We've also still got 2 workshops coming up with the same content as today, but it'll be different in a face-to-face situation. Auckland is the 2nd of August and Christchurch is the 9th of August. You can register for these or pass on the registration link to colleagues that you think might be interested. And the link is on that same slide. Just reminding you again, these are the people in the education team. You can get in touch with any of us here through email.